Our May 12th meeting will come to order. And, can we do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkinson. Present. Mayor Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Mark.
Here.
Councilmember Carapiet. Here.
Gotta turn down the volume somewhere.
Okay, is there any public comment on the closed session agenda items 5A, 5B, or 5C?
There are no hands raised.
All right, great. In that case, we will adjourn to closed session and be back at 6:30. However, we have two recusals.
Yeah, Mayor Cooper, I'm recused from one of the items. We'll vacate the room when that comes up. I think Councilmember Wilkinson is as well.
Yes,
And the reason you're recused is?
within 500 feet of the property.
Okay.
Great, okay. Thank you. Then we can go. What?
Said 500.
What?
We're good. We're okay.
I made them say 500 feet.
Yep. Perfect.
He yelled at me last time. I didn't say. There we go. There still seems to be an echo. Is this okay? Does it sound okay? Okay. We are back from closed session and I will report that there are no actions to report relative to the existing and anticipated litigation discussed in the closed session. However, ongoing litigation has significant budgetary impacts on the city, which will be highlighted in our budget discussion later in the meeting. So with that, we'll move on to reports and presentations. First item is council reports. Does anyone have anything to report tonight?
I have a couple of reports.
Okay,
First, I'd like to report on the April 30th chat that Robert and Zanuck and I had at the West Shore home of Larry Binkley and Kathy Huber, who were the most generous hosts in their beautiful home, and their dining room table was full of food and beverages. We started the
so
message.
next time, show up at the chat.
Yeah. We started the messaging that the Be Ready Belvedere Committee is focused on. It's focused on right now personal responsibility. It's a 4-line message. Sign up for Alert Marin. Have at least 72 hours of provisions for shelter in place and a go bag if asked to evacuate. Have a personal evacuation plan en route and evacuate early if called upon. We gave a brief overview of our planned fall event. There's Larry there. And we fielded questions mostly about the safety. We had one coyote question and one housing element question. It was well received. I felt it was well received by the participants, and it was in a very positive atmosphere, and people seemed welcome to get the information that we're working on safety and evacuation plans in the city. The library, I attended the library meeting this month. They discussed their library collection regarding how books are chosen. They're looking at areas of to redesign areas the stacks, things like that, to make them more user-friendly. And they feel that after now that they've been in the new building for a while and see how people interact in the library, they realize that they want to make some changes to make it even more beneficial for patrons. And then finally, I attended the RBRA meeting, and the removal of vessels is still in progress. There are 7 vessels in the eelgrass field, and there are 6 in the designated anchorage. Of the 13 boats, there are 6 that are in the process of coming off the water and going into housing. Recently, the RBRA had 4,000 tons of debris that were removed from the eelgrass area, and was done sort of the end of April, beginning of May. And it included TVs, PlayStation, just a lot of debris. And we also made an amendment to their code that requires that a person be on the boat from sunset to sunrise, except for a 4-hour window. And this is to avoid unattended boats causing damage in a storm. And that's my report.
Thank you. You had a busy month. Anyone else? Councilmember Burke.
Just wanted to report that on April 23rd, I participated in the Marin Sea Level Rise Committee meeting. It's a monthly meeting that we have to discuss that particular topic. At our last meeting, we had 2 presentations. The first was the Transportation Authority of Marin Sea Level Rise Adaptation Study. The second was a presentation by the San Francisco Estuary Institute on San Francisco Baylands resilience metrics. Both presentations just further underscore the many sea level rise challenges we are facing in the Bay Area. A key question still remains, however, which is how might the cities and towns of Marin work together to address these challenges through some sort of integrated adaptation planning process. Our next meeting is on May 28th, and I hope we begin to tackle that question at that meeting. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. I attended the April Marin City Council and Mayor's monthly meeting held in Corte Madera. And one of the best things about these meetings is you meet other city council members and mayors and hear about what they're doing. I was able to chat with a council member in Mill Valley, and they had just had a huge evacuation drill. And it was really great talking to him, hearing what he had to say, and getting information, which I will share with our Be Ready Belvedere working group, and lots of good ideas. So it was a good meeting. And that's all I had to report. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments on council reports on Zoom?
Yes, we have Mr. Rothman.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much. I'm addressing the question of the council persons meeting that member Cooper attended.
Wait a second.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
We
no,
have a bit of a bad connection, Mr. Rothman.
Oh,
Um,
can you hear me now?
We hear your voice, but the problem is every word is breaking up.
Oh, I don't,
It's not a matter of not hearing you. It's your words aren't.
intelligent,
Right.
understandable.
No.
no,
Do you think you could disconnect and try again, and we'll have you come back?
Okay, I don't know how to disconnect. Let's see, how would I disconnect? You will,
if you could sign out of Zoom and either call on your phone, that might be easier, or try to join back in.
okay, let me just, let me just, can you show me?
Did he disconnect?
No, I muted him.
Oh,
Unmute?
can you tell him to
Can you hear
leave
me
meeting?
now?
Doesn't it say leave meeting?
Can you hear me now?
No, sorry.
It's the same issue. If you could please either, we'll sign out of Zoom and call in on your telephone.
Okay, it's okay. I'll try to sign back in, but thank you very much for trying.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. There are no other hands raised.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move to the city manager report. Mr. Zadnik.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. I'll start off by commenting about vegetation management. Again, it's that time of year where our mind starts turning to fire safety. This year, Public Works will be hosting another round of curbside vegetation pickup. It's a free service to the community whereby residents or their gardeners can neatly stack some brush and other cuttings at the edge of the road for pickup. Public Works crews will then come around weekly to pick up that vegetation and then dispose of it at the city's corporation yard. This marks the 6th year of the city offering this program. It seems like every year we offer it, there's more people that are aware and take advantage of it. Residents always have great things to say, and I think it's an effective way to overall to reduce the fuel load on the island and get people focused on fire prevention. The event will run from the remainder of this month throughout June, and then information will be posted on the city's website and coming e-newsletter later this week, excuse me, on ways to participate with more information. So please tune into the website. Switching gears, the police department staffing remains at the top of the list at City Hall. As you recall from our last council retreat discussion, we're now narrowing down a few of the options that were presented. Along with simply hiring another full-time officer, we're in parallel exploring if a shared service model whereby Tiburon officers provide some level of nighttime coverage when our call volume is at its lowest. We're looking at this from both the financial side and then the operations side to ensure that it's the best fit for the community. It's likely that this shared role, if it is approved, obviously it has to come back to City Council for consideration. It would most likely be a pilot project, a temporary solution as we look for larger fixes. We are moving as quickly as possible, and we wanted to thank the City Council and the Police Department for your patience as we continue to work on it. On the topic of funding, I'll just move and speak a little bit on the FEMA grant. If you're aware, in 2021, the City of Belvedere applied for a grant with FEMA, which aimed to address resiliency in Belvedere. It was designed to shore up vulnerable sections of Beach Road and San Rafael Avenue. The idea of the grant was to reduce the flooding risk and then also damage that would result from the main arteries following a main arterial routes, roadways following a serious earthquake. Unfortunately, we've recently heard from FEMA that it's discontinuing all of its BRIC program funding going forward. They've pulled back any unawarded funds from the BRIC program going back all the way to 2020. I can't say it's not a surprise given the current climate in Washington, but it is unfortunate as this project without grant funds is a costly endeavor for the City of Belvedere. We're currently looking into other grant fund options with the state, and we are, of course, still planning to pursue smaller repairs to the levees utilizing the city's general fund. There'll be more discussion of this as we get into the budget topic this evening, but I did want to give council and the community an update and to be aware of this news. And then finally on the list is just a general update on Mallard. There's really not been a whole lot of significant change from last month. Staff continues to meet with Thompson Dorfman. We're waiting for them to sign the updated cost recovery agreement and submit the required deposit. Once those two items are complete, our team can begin reviewing and processing their building, demolition, and infrastructure applications. So overall, I think it's been a little bit of a wait and see month, but we'll expect to see some movement on some of these items in the next few weeks. That concludes my updates. I'm happy to take questions.
Are there any questions for the city manager?
Just briefly, Robert, your update on the cost recovery agreement with Thompson Dorfman, sort of the same report you've given for the last couple of months, understandably. Is there anything standing in the way? Is it just the financing climate, perhaps? What would you think is the reason for it that they're not, moving forward?
Yeah, from talking with Director Markwick, my understanding is the ball's in their court. We have negotiated a revised final version of this new agreement. It's in their hands whether or not they want to sign it. And then, of course, the second part of that is submitting a deposit, which is also in their court. Rebecca, if you want, you can add anything to that.
That is correct. I continue to meet with them. I think we are very close. They indicated wanting to drop checks off last week, but we didn't have the agreements signed. And so I asked that we wait to get the agreements and the checks at the same time. So it should be any time now that we are going to move forward with those.
And I presume this new cost recovery reconciles and resolves the outstanding recovery from the previous planning and environmental review and so forth.
There's two agreements. One's the outstanding and one's what we're calling the go forward.
Mhm.
So, yes.
But does it go forward? Because we wouldn't necessarily want to go forward if we haven't resolved the going back.
We're doing it, yeah,
Yes.
together. Yes.
On that same topic, since we are waiting for the fees to be paid, what is the point? I thought we weren't reviewing any of their documents until they were paid, so I'm confused on what you're meeting about.
We are not reviewing any of their submitted material for the building permits. We're meeting about these agreements, these two
Oh, you're
separate
just
agreements,
meeting about the
and the
agreement.
conditions of approval, for the final map are pretty lengthy. And so we've been going over the documents that are required for that.
Okay. It's just using more of your time without being paid.
We did take in a deposit for the building permits for the plan check fee. So I'm billing
Okay.
towards that.
Okay, thank you.
So, Director, could you refresh our memories on, since this was an SB 330 application, their fees, are they the new fees or the old fees that were in existence when they applied?
My apologies for jumping in, but since we're just on a general city manager update item,
Oh, okay.
we probably don't want to get too much in the weeds on this one. My apologies, Councilmember.
We
Any
can
other
circle back with
questions?
you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. City Manager, is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that has questions or comments for our,
Out of the 8 attendees, there are no hands raised.
okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to a presentation from our representative on the Marin County Committee of Aging, Larry Binkley. If you'd like to come up, Larry, to the podium. And do you know how to turn on that microphone there so everyone can hear you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That work?
Yes, thank you. And Larry's going to give us, I guess, an annual update and let us know where this county Committee on Aging and what their goals are and how they affect Belvedere. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper and members of the council. As your commissioner representing Belvedere, I'd like to present a brief update and forecast for my involvement with the Marin County Council on Aging. Just a brief background. The Commission on Aging is a federally mandated advisory council to the Marin County Board of Supervisors and the Area Agency on Aging. Our primary goal is to articulate the voice of our over 60 population to local government, elected officials, community agencies, and partners throughout the county. I see us as a conduit between the local communities in our commission, our councils, and the Board of Supervisors. The commission is made up of a commissioner from the 11 cities and towns in our county, appointed by their councils, and 2 commissioners representing each of 5 districts by the Board of Supervisors. Here is why I think the Commission on Aging is becoming more and more important. Since our last needs assessment in 2019, our population, over 60 aged population, has increased to 30%, which is more than statewide Statewide is about 20%, Marin County is about 30. And it's going to increase to about 40% of our population in the next 10 years, which is almost half. Food insecurity has risen from 10 to 18%, which is almost doubled. Financial insecurity has increased from 13 to 29%, which is more than doubled. And those with fixed incomes say that it's more difficult for them to make ends meet, and it's hard for them to live on their current incomes. Housing, we know, is an issue everywhere, but here in Belvedere, it's somewhat differently framed. There are different issues like house rich, income poor, and living alone in a large home because you can't find a place to downsize and stay in your community. Finally, for those who are housebound due to age or disability, isolation and loneliness have increased over the last 4 years. Now it makes a third of our older adults of our population are considered to be socially isolated. It's by the way, it's important to remember that these statistics are countywide. They're not citywide. Each community is different. So, so Belvedere's poverty and food insecurity, for example, the level might be lower than other communities, but housing issues, transportation issues, and isolation rank really high here. So that's what we're focused on. And how do we address it? One thing for me personally, I've made connecting with my community my top priority. So while the rest of the commissioners, we all work in committees and we work on a lot of legislation, but I think the most important thing is for us to reach out and to our communities and carry whatever messages back and forth that we can. So since Belvedere and Tiburon are neighbors and very similar in population composition, I've worked closely for the last 2.5 years with my counterpart from Tiburon, Jane Gould. And together we've integrated Belvedere's age-friendly grassroots community contact and communication with our Commission on Aging Advisory and Legislative role. Last year, we worked with the Ranch and the Beltabe Library to bring to our communities the Senior Expo, which took place at the library, as you know. It was a one-day event, and it presented the resources that are available to that age group and engaged participants in active discussions about community needs and issues. By the way, it was a resounding success. It was really well attended, as you I'm sure know. In addition to that, at the Expo, Jane and I signed up interested participants for 2 follow-up forums that we led that dug deeper into those issues so we could get closer to our communities. The overall outcome was twofold. It put us more in touch with our communities, gave us better understandings, and it helps inspire the Ranch and the library to increase their focus on the over 60 population. Finally, commissioners have a 3-year term, and mine expires soon. So if I were to stay on, I just want to outline my objectives going forward. So in addition to the daily business of the commission, my objective would be to raise awareness of available resources to help our senior population, including a focus on emergency preparedness. This can be done in several ways: working with fire and police, distributing the new Vivalon countywide resource guide coming up later this year, more events like the Senior Expo, regularly scheduled meetings at the library, and even updating and effectively distributing the Belvedere Resource Guide. I hope you all remember the Belvedere Resource Guide. This resource guide was designed by me And it was printed by the city. And it has emergency services in it, evacuation planning, personal emergency information. And it was put in a print form to make it easily accessible to everyone, and especially senior residents who are less likely to go on the internet for information. My second priority would be transportation. I want to work on local short distance transportation for Belvedere and for Tiburon. Solutions like volunteer driver short trip programs would be a good answer to the needs of our community. People who want to take short trips to the store, get groceries, meetings, the doctor, whatever. And of course, continue with lobbying for more effective countywide mass transit. And the third and last is isolation and reintegration. There are just over 100 or 1,000 housing units in Belvedere, and over 10% of them are occupied by an older single person living alone. I want to help find ways to connect with those who are housebound and work to integrate them back into our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. That was a really interesting report. Well, I don't know, I forget, your term is up in
End of June.
End of June. And I think Larry has generously agreed to remain in his position for maybe not the entire next term of, is it 3 years, you said? 3 years, but I think we're going to take you up on that, assuming you want to make it public.
Well, there's some things in motion right now that I'd like to see through, which would be great, like what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
That are promising, and I think it would be great for the community, so.
It would. Several of us are very, very concerned about emergency preparedness, especially among seniors, and how to help them in case of a natural disaster, designating who they are, who can be there for them. And actually, Larry and I met this morning with a very interesting woman who gave us great feedback on figuring out the volunteer driver for short distances. And we're both really excited about pursuing that and seeing what we can do for our community members who have had to give up their licenses and still need to get around. So as you know, we don't have a lot of public transportation here. And the taxis, Uber, et cetera, don't like coming down into Tiburon, and especially into Belvedere. So does anyone have any questions for Larry about this, what he's doing?
I don't have any questions, but thank you very much. I think what you're doing is important for the community, and we appreciate all the effort you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Larry. It's really key.
Thank you.
So, you have to wait 1 second though, Larry. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Larry? No? How about on Zoom?
There are no
Okay,
hands
now you
raised.
can sit. Thanks again for coming. It was, I know, a long day, so thanks so much. Okay. On we move to item 7D, where we have interviews tonight for several appointments. One committee is our Planning Commission, and the other applicants are looking to be appointed to the Ranch Board of Directors. So in total, we have 5 really well-qualified candidates. I think I'm going to take in order of the agenda. So we're going to start with our Planning Commission candidates. And those will be the 3 first that we interview. Before we begin interviewing, I just want to add that the community really relies on a planning commission for more than the responsibilities that were listed in this. Oh, did we have a staff report? Sorry.
You're doing great if you want to
Okay.
continue.
Oops, I forgot to write down staff report. That's what happens when I don't write it down. So we do really rely on responsibilities, great responsibilities from them. While we were working on the state mandated housing element, the planning commissioners were very generous with their time to help us review and edit the document. In relatively short time, we're going to be having to do our general plan anew, and we will be depending on planning commissioners to participate in that as well. So we rely on planning commissioners to uphold our design review code in a fair manner, to attend all meetings, and to help create policy as needed when it comes to housing or planning department issues, design review issues. But most of all, we're looking for commissioners who care about what's really best for Belvedere. And I think that's what we all truly care about. So just to let you know, first we do the interviews, and then we'll be making our decisions about all the different appointments later on at the end of the meeting. You're certainly welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but please feel free to leave after your interview, and the city manager will contact you tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yep, either myself or Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, great. So in that case, I'd like to invite Azaleh Jamai to come up to the podium. Good evening. And welcome. Thank you for applying. And we have your letter, which we've all read, but if you'd like to add anything or highlight anything from it or anything else you'd like to let us know, please feel free.
Sure, I briefly go through what I wrote, basically. I lived in Belvedere since 2002, as a matter of fact, when I was renting in Belvedere. Then we moved to Tiburon, and then since 2008, we lived in the house that we live right now with my husband, and we have a 15-year-old daughter. I have a master's degree in architecture. In 2000, graduated 1999, and in 2010, my husband and I started our own architectural firm. We are both architects. We started our own architectural firm, and we work across the United States. We work in many different municipalities. I'd like to contribute my time in the field that I have expertise and passion. And if it is helpful for our city, I would like to be considered for the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone who would like to start? Anyone have questions for Azaleh? Sure. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Burke.
Hi, it's nice to see you. In fact, when I was on the Planning Commission, I think I was at your house. I visited your home when you were doing some remodeling. So I got to see your architectural work in action. So that was really exciting. How many meetings have you been to? Have you been to a Planning Commission meeting besides anything that might be related to your own home?
In Belvedere?
Yeah.
No.
No. And what about planning commissioners? Have you had a chance to speak with any either present or past planning commissioners?
Peter called me to discuss my interest. And then just during my own remodel, when planning commissioners reached out to me, I discussed, not further.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about the opportunity, I mean, what do you think are some of the big challenges that planning commissioner is faced with?
You know, I think Belvedere has a lot to offer as far as the views and the beauties. At the same time, the hills create a lot of limitations. Of course, the planning, zoning, and rules are there, and we are to follow. However, I think there are a lot of variances just because of the particular issues that each land or lot has and has to be dealt with. And there are important to be, I think it is important for the planning commissioner to understand the limitations and the possibilities to be able to offer an opinion, basically. And I think by studying architecture and practicing for a long time, I'm equipped with understanding the situation or the limitations or the opportunities or what it can offer. So I think that would be particular to Belvedere as far as what you are to review and respond.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay.
Thank you for stepping forward, Azalea. I also met you when you were doing your project on your house, and I still remember those little lights outside that you used that I was fascinated with. So one of my questions is that to be a planning commissioner, you pretty much have to dedicate yourself for the third week of the month. You know, you get your package Wednesday, Thursday before, and you have your meeting on Tuesday. So I'm assuming that you understand that commitment each month that you're going to have, and that you are have the ability to attend the meetings.
Yes, I actually asked that from Peter when we were talking. So yes, if I commit to do it, I will. I don't say I have a lot of time on my hand in general. I am running a business. I'm a mother. So it's not that I have a lot of time in my hand, but if I commit to something, I will do it. The only limitation that I had and we discussed was when I go on vacation. I mean, once a year, I go on vacation and probably I would miss once a year. For 1 month, I wouldn't be here, and it would happen that during summertime, I would miss one. And he said there would be others that would fit in or fill in. And if that's the case, I could commit.
Right. I think we all deserve a vacation at least once a year. So my other question is you do practice architecture. Do you have any current projects that are going on in the city other than for yourself?
Exactly. My own house again, at this point
Oh,
again.
your
is
own
I
house.
have-
Okay.
Well, I have planning approval. I'm waiting for building approval. So
Okay.
I'm doing another remodel. And then after that, I think I will have another remodel on my house. I had to phase it. So, but no, not any in the, you know, in, by design, I do not like to work in the neighborhood that I live in. Especially architecture, it has a lot that I don't want when I am walking during the weekend in our beautiful town, see my clients or answer questions. So by design, I do not want to work in our neighborhood. However, I should say there are particular lands in Belvedere that is a dream for any architect to design. If ever any of those are up for design, and if I am considered, and I have to tell you about my practice, I've never done marketing. So if any of those projects come for design, I would love to design on those lands, but no, not particularly any project would I prefer not to work in our neighborhood.
Good choice. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure. As Azalea described, I had a very nice conversation with her and other applicants as well. We spent some time talking about the importance of focusing on the planning process, the findings in the process, and it's becoming less about your perspective and your opinion than it is the comparison to what the planning staff lays out as the findings that need to be made, and that's becoming more and more important as the state are requiring more objective requirements, are adding objective requirements to the process. We spoke about the required training that we're asking all planning commissioners to go through, either a seminar in person or online within the first year or so of your responsibilities. And we did touch, as Mayor Cooper pointed out, the broader perspectives and broader asks we make of planning commissioners to raise their hand to help us with zoning ordinances, general plan updates and so forth, and answer some questions. So I don't have any questions. I just wanted to fill the council in on our conversation to cover the breadth of what we did talk about. And I'll listen to other questions other people have. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wilkinson, Vice Mayor Wilkinson.
I have only one question because I always try and listen to others because I have no experience on planning, so I'm interested in others' questions. But you did mention that you'd only attended one planning commission meeting here, but I'm assuming because of your job that you have attended planning commission meetings throughout the world. And I'm just curious in terms of your experience of what your experience has been in Belvedere versus those others and how that might help you in this role.
Sure, let's compare Miami Beach with Belvedere. I think the rules of planning and zoning, those are the ones that they really are focused on and asking questions and considering, and not the things that anybody or a neighbor might have concern. Or of course you talk with neighbors if like in the planning commission, I mean, address or not, but it is basically you have a limitation on what you are supposed to discuss or not, and they are following it very well versus here I feel sometimes people are asking questions that it's not part of the scope to be asked or considered, which I think it is important to follow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second
Yeah.
that. I agree with
Yeah.
that.
I know. I was waiting for you. Well, and I think because Belvedere is so small, obviously, compared to Miami, people have strong opinions in the community. And, you know, one of the things, as you mentioned, that you didn't want to have a client here so that you didn't run into those kind of issues that we all do on some level. But we are kind of an eclectic city as far as architecture. And do you tend to focus on one particular type of architecture? Or are you open to the eclectic vision of Belvedere? And
As a planning commissioner or as an architect or as a personal person? Let's say that way, like as an architect, even as an architect. So as a planning commissioner, no, it is basically, I think, none of my business. What is the language of the architecture they want to do? As an architect with my clients, even I have hesitation to express my own personal, you know, opinion. However, I have in my practice, I have this thing that we are designing in 21st century. I don't want to design a French chateau. Shall I just end it there?
Sure, that's fine.
But that is personal. When
Yeah.
as a and in my practice, but as a commissioner, no, I don't think it is part of my scope to decide on the language of the architecture.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I always ask every person we interview the toughest question you'll have tonight, which is, do you get the Belvedere Breeze e-newsletter once a month? And if not, you have to sign up for it.
I do get them. I confess I don't read them all the time.
Okay, that's okay. I didn't ask whether you read it, but thank you for mentioning that. Try to start reading it. Okay, so Azalea, we do, I don't know if Councilmember Mark mentioned it or not, but I think you alluded that our planning commission has just been redesigned, and we went down from 7 members to 5. And but because of the possibility of illness or a vacation once a year or whatever, or needing to miss a meeting maybe once a year, we are putting in 2 alternate positions. One alternate will be someone who's had experience on our planning commission recently, but the second alternate will be someone who could sort of be training at the ongoing meeting with people, attending some meetings, getting ready so that if it works out, they could sit in on a meeting or be ready to take over a position should one become available. So I wanted to know if you would be willing, depending on what goes on tonight with the other interviewers, if you would be willing to serve as the essentially alternate two, because you haven't come from our planning commission. I don't know if that would interest you at all, that you would be sort of in training or in a learning position.
Sure, I'd like to do it if I'm helpful for our city.
Okay.
This is not for me personally, it is for if I can be helpful, and if not, no. But that is that 1 month a year
Yes.
vacation thing, that if it happens that I'm on a reserve and then they just need me that 1 month that I'm away.
No,
I
we
feel
understand
bad,
that.
But
No, no,
apart from
we-
that, yes, I'm fine.
Don't worry, we understand. That's why we have two.
Right.
So, okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay, next I'll invite Eugenia Jesberg to the podium. Thank you for applying to serve on the Planning Commission. In either position, I think you wrote in your note that you'd be willing to serve on the commission or in the alternate two position. So thank you. As I said before, we have your letter, but we'd love to have you add anything or highlight anything that you'd care to before questions.
Yeah, I just prepared a brief comments here. So yes, I'm interested. I'm Eugenia Jesberg. I'm interested in serving on the Belvedere Planning Commission, either as a regular or alternate member, wherever the committee feels I can be most useful. My husband and I have lived in Belvedere since 2011, and in 2013, we completed a full renovation of our Lagoon home. And prior to that, we renovated our Mill Valley home twice. These experiences give me a firsthand appreciation for the design review and building process from a homeowner's perspective. Professionally, I've worked as an interior designer for 35 years with a design studio based in Tiburon. My work spans the Bay Area and beyond. I have a deep appreciation of architecture, design, and gardens. While I'm not a licensed architect, I often say I'm a wannabe. I'm very familiar with reading plans, navigating general building requirements, and collaborating with homeowners, architects, and contractors. I'm interested in this role not only because of my love of design, but also my deep appreciation of what makes Belvedere so unique. I value the character, the scale, and history of the community, but I also care about its future. I recognize that there's a lot to learn, particularly around how state mandates impact local planning, and I'm eager to be part of that conversation and contribute thoughtfully. Ultimately, I hope to bring a collaborative, practical, and design-minded perspective to the commission, grounded in respect for our neighborhood and a desire to support balanced, thoughtful planning.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to start with questions? Councilmember Burke? Sure.
These are going to be surprise questions.
Like
I wanted to ask you, I mean, besides your own personal experience with the Planning Commission, have you been to a Planning Commission meeting?
Here? No.
And then what about any time that have you spent any time with any of the either current or past planning commissioners to understand the role?
I mean, during our process, I think some of the planning commissioners are still on it. And then I spoke with Peter
Great.
a bit today.
Great. So you got an insider's perspective in terms of the role and what's required and so forth.
I think so.
Oh, awesome. Maybe a new question is, there's it can be a challenging process sometimes when you have the city code and the administrative policy, and then you have the applicant, and then you have neighbors. And sometimes those three things don't all sync up, and there is a dispute or disagreement. I mean, how would you envision finding a resolution if in fact the code and the applicant and the neighbors are not on the same page?
I think it probably is similar to what I can come in situations with our work, with my practice. If somebody wants something a specific way, but it just doesn't fit, or there's limitations with the construction. I mean, I think I'm a pretty good communicator with different parties, homeowner, contractors, architects, and sort of being a team player and sort of being rational and hopefully coming to a resolution and conversation that makes sense.
So help guiding people through that
Yes,
process.
yep.
Yeah, great. Great. That's all of my questions.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll go. So I'm going to ask the same questions. So you do understand that pretty much that for that third weekend that you are going to be working to work through the packet that you have for that month.
Yes.
And that the expectation is, other than vacation or illness, that you're going to be attending all the meetings. And do you feel that you are able to make that kind of commitment? Okay. And then the other question is that do you have any clients in Belvedere that you work with that would
Unlike
cause a?
Azalea, I do have clients here, but I'm the interior part. I have one potential project that will be going through planning, but it's with, my name's not on it. But I'm generally not part of the planning process.
Okay, so you're more the inside,
the
interior,
inside.
yeah,
I mean, I have a lot of opinion about the outside.
yeah, okay.
I have
Okay,
a lot of opinions, but I don't get involved in that.
and
Which is
then,
why I've never been to a planning.
perfect,
meeting. Yeah.
excuse me, and then to answer the question that you applied and you said you would be open to either position.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else? No, okay. So I guess Eugenia, because you do interiors, you're essentially working, is it more after or during the architecture process?
I'm definitely during the architecture process, but I'm more the finishes and layout and not into the
Mhm.
setbacks and
Okay,
codes and.
and you don't feel that there would you feel you would have to recuse yourself if you had one of the homes because of issues with your
I
client?
think that's, I mean, I'm working, if, like the one project I'm referencing, there's an architect who, that will be his project.
Right,
to come
but
to
you'd be
later.
sitting up here judging
Yeah,
it.
That's true. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
would probably have to, I would think.
We'd have to
on
think that
something like
through.
that.
Yeah,
And I only have one in the future that would be
okay,
of that.
thank you.
And I don't think it's still in the design phase. Maybe. I don't even know where it is. Maybe that's because I've stepped back, letting them get to, we want to build this house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about your thoughts about the eclectic aspects of Belvedere and how a planning commissioner might fit into that and what their feelings are? Do you do much with landscaping with your projects
Well,
or not so much?
I'm called in often for opinion.
Okay.
I don't do the design, but I become, I'm sure the same for Osley, we get very involved in our projects. And so the homeowners, we're basically their voice often. So I'm familiar with if there's an Indian burial ground and you can't.
But I mean, do you,
Thanks.
the
from a
planning
conflict of
commission
interest?
actually does a lot with landscaping as well. So trees and
Mhm.
et cetera. So that we have a lot going on with that around
Yeah.
here too.
No, I'm, like I said, I entered the gardens and understand, neighbors and trees and.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. So do you receive the Belvedere e-newsletter?
I did subscribe, but I
Okay.
don't know where it goes. So now you've reminded me.
Okay.
I
It
could
should
dribble a
come
little
to
bit.
your
I know,
email.
But I'm wondering, like,
It might,
you
we
think it
might have
does?
to check to make sure we have the correct email.
I did get it. I did subscribe.
Yeah, you
And
did
then
subscribe.
now where'd it go?
I'll remind you to look
Yes, you
for it.
will. I know, I'm like, guilty.
That's okay. I know you did subscribe, so that's good. Okay, does anyone else have any questions for Eugenia? Go ahead.
It's not a question. I apologize that when it first started, I didn't thank you for stepping up and volunteering for the city. So I just want to make sure that you know that. I appreciate that you're stepping up.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eugenia.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'd like to invite Isolde Wilson. Am I saying that correctly? Isolde, okay. And thank you for applying to serve on the Planning Commission.
Yes, thank you.
We have your letter, but if there's anything you'd like to add or highlight from your career or what your interests are for joining the Planning Commission.
Thank you for inviting me to the hearing tonight. My name is Isolde Wilson. I've lived in Belvedere for 19 years. My interest in this position is I'm finding myself with a lot of free time now that the kids are gone out of the house, that sort of thing. And I'm interested in getting much more involved in Belvedere locally. My background is, I have a design background with a degree in architecture, but my professional career was almost entirely in planning and urban design. So I feel like I have that background that I could contribute to Belvedere. I've really enjoyed living here. I like the variety of the landscape and the architecture here, and just want to get more involved. In the past, I was involved maybe 10 years ago with some of the rezoning on the lagoon. So I was heavily involved in that project for maybe 2 or 3 years. So that's sort of the extent of my local participation, I'd say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember
Guess what
Burke.
I'm going to ask? Have you had a chance to attend one of, I know you've been to many planning meetings, as I can see from your resume. Have you ever been to one of ours?
When I was involved with the lagoon
Zoning.
rezoning for FEMA, I was involved in a lot of the meetings then. I did attend the meeting last month just to kind of prepare for the meeting tonight.
And you want to come back?
Yeah. Well, I went because I wanted to see what the vibe was like. It had been a
Yeah.
while. I will say that there was a lot of tense discussions at the meeting, and I came out struck by that. And I felt that it was a struggle for the commissioners, that they didn't have the tools they needed to make the kind of decisions that they wanted to make at the hearing. And I could sense the frustration with that.
So tell me a little bit more about that. I mean,
Yeah.
so what would be an example of a tool that might be helpful that maybe we don't have or we could improve?
I think that the regulations are always evolving, and I got the sense that they're in between regulations with the new state objective standards that are coming through. I found that at the commission, there's a lot of question about, well, what are we going to do with the space that's being proposed tonight? What's going to happen to it in the future? And I felt like the commission and probably the staff also felt helpless to kind of regulate in a productive manner. I think they just don't have the tools. So I don't have any specifics, but I think it's like a process of sort of tightening out where the problems are and how are you going to make the commissioner's job, I guess, easier in a way, because I really felt that they were grasping.
And do you think your experience at the San Francisco Planning Department would be helpful in that regard? You could leverage that experience to.
I do. I think that they are ahead of the curve with a lot of planning ideas. I know that there are some tools that we've used there that I don't think are in use here.
Mhm.
I don't know how operationally how everything is run here. But I think in my experience there, they're pretty progressive. And for San Francisco, I think planning is very well received. There's not a lot of blowback on the planning department there.
Great. One
Which is
other question.
different for Belvedere. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
One other question is, so what is your view on variances?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I don't know what the variances are for, but I don't have a issue with variances in general. I think it's a question about what kind of impact they're going to have on the, like if it's on the street or on neighbors, that sort of thing, on views.
Yeah.
I think that's, and I think street use permits are the same, or right of way permits, same thing. It's if you're going to allow them, are they having an impact? And I think that needs to be weighed pretty carefully.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Isolda, for stepping forward. We appreciate your raising your hand. And I'm going to ask the same question. You realize that we're looking for a commitment for the third Tuesday of almost all months of the year. And it sounds like you do have time on your hands now, where before you were quite busy. But you are prepared to make that kind of commitment?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I can't do this month, but
Yeah.
I don't know when the position would start.
It would
Is it
start in
June?
June.
June, yeah, it's fine.
Oh, yeah, this one's June. You don't wait till the July
Yeah.
one. And then you don't have any, you personally wouldn't have a conflict with a project in the city. However, it would roll over to your husband, and of course you would be recused from
Yeah, I'd have to
that.
be
So
recused
that's
from
not
that,
really
yeah.
a pertinent question for you. And then I guess the last question to jump in ahead of the mayor is would you, depending on how things go tonight, would you be open to either of the positions we're going to consider, whether it planning commission or the alternate?
Yeah, either position. Yeah,
Okay,
just like
great.
the other applicants, wherever it's, the skill set is best put to use.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hi. Just to remind, I've had these conversations with each of you, so thank you for the time. One thing that we did talk about, which sort of caught my attention, and I know it was a little while ago, but you had worked in San Francisco on the residential design standards, which is sort of a precursor to the objective standards that we're trying to put together going forward. I'm just curious if you would touch base on that a little bit, or just
My experience with that.
Yes,
Yeah,
experience
so,
with that.
San Francisco, I think their original design guidelines, I'm going to say 1980. And then we did a redo of them in 2013. They're still in effect. The city just, I think in March, adopted their objective standards. But the residential design guidelines are in effect for any projects that aren't subject to the objective standards. So they're still in line. But we looked at things that weren't working over the years, the 20 years prior to that, and updated everything. It was a long process. It was about a year and a half for the update. At the beginning of it, the director told us that we had to call every community organization in San Francisco and do a dog and pony show on these guidelines. And it was a very difficult process. We just got slammed left and right. Like it was horrible. But by the time we got to the planning commission, nobody showed up. And there's one architect who came and spoke in support of it. I think the idea behind the design guidelines is it's in line with objective standards from the state, and that it kind of takes away some guesswork and sets some common ground between the applicant and the neighbors and the city as well. So, yeah.
And in case anyone here had any questions, Councilmember Carapiet, Councilmember Mark, and Councilmember Burke were all previous planning commissioners. The two of them most recently. Vice Mayor Wilkinson and I have not been on the planning commission. So our questions are not as deep or thorough as the rest of them.
You were the wiser of the group.
Well, there are times when I agree with that. So I guess my really hard question again is, do you get the Belvedere e-newsletter as
Yes,
a
I do.
breeze?
Yes, I
You
do
do?
get it, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So far,
That's the right answer.
yeah. So if there are no other questions for Isolda, thank you very much again for coming forward. Okay, so that's ends our interviews for the Planning Commission. And as I said, everyone is free to take off. We probably won't be actually getting to the discussion about choosing anyone for another couple hours. So you're more than welcome to stay, but we won't hold it against you if you decide to leave. Most people do. So, and now we'll move on to interviews for the Belvedere representative to the Ranch Board of Directors. And this person will join with two other Belvedere representatives, Julianne Schaefer and Chelsea Schlunt as the Belvedere representatives to this joint board. So our vice mayor actually sits on this board of directors as a representative from the council. So she will have wonderful questions to ask everyone. So to get started, Madeline, come on up, Madeline Short. Are you Madeline or Maddie tonight?
I go by Maddie.
I know you do. So I was the coyote person that
Of
came and
course.
visited you.
Yes, and
So
you reminded me about the Belvedere Breeze then, so.
yes,
I'm all set.
I don't let a visit go by. It's the only thing. They're gonna bury me and it's gonna say Belvedere Breeze on my headstone. Coyotes and Belvedere Breeze, the two. I don't know. Not looking good for me. Okay, anyway, thank you, Maddie. And again, thank you for showing your interest in serving the community on this committee. And please add anything or highlight anything that you'd like for us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So my husband and I moved to Belvedere 2 years ago from San Francisco, but it felt more like a homecoming for me. I grew up in East Corte Madera and attended the Reed schools and Redwood School growing up. So a lot of the programs that the ranch puts on are very familiar to me. As I'm reintroduced to the community, I really want to be involved in helping set that foundation for future generations and existing residents. The early introduction to sports through Tiburon really allowed me to have the confidence to continue to pursue athletics. I played volleyball in college and was able to help fund some of my college that way. And I've lived in quite a few different cities, pursuing adult rec leagues in all of those cities. That's really how I've been able to find my friend groups and communities. So when this opportunity came about, it really struck a chord with me, being able to help other people find that community as well, of all ages and interests.
Great, thank you. And welcome back.
Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions for Maddie?
Yeah. Thank you very much for applying for this position. As our mayor said, I serve as one of the voting members of Belvedere's 4 voting members, I guess we are. And in my experience, there's sort of 3 potential different roles where strength is sort of beneficial. One is on the finance side, because there's a finance committee that sits sort of separately from the board, but made up of board members. And they meet a few times in addition to the regular meetings of the ranch. And then in addition to that, there are people who give a lot of ideas in relation to the programs themselves and changes both to the youth programs and to the adult programs. And then the third role is really just the volunteering role, where board members will show up to events. And so I guess of those 3 different sort of subsets, which of those do you feel, maybe all of them, I mean, which are most appealing to you, I guess?
Yeah, great question. The last 2 are what I think I naturally fit into the most. I have some coaching experience as well, working with high school aged kids, and also being a member of the programs and wanting to join as well. And I'm happy to dedicate some time to volunteering as well. On the finance side, if that is the spot that really needs a lot of help today, that was certainly a part of my role for my most recent professional experience for a Blackstone portfolio company, where our goal was really to cut costs and really ensure that we can scale operations efficiently and effectively. So that involved a lot of forecasting and a lot of contract negotiations. So that is something that I would not say I'm an expert in, but certainly have exposure to.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I do. Okay, Councilmember Burke.
It sounds like you've had a chance to experience the ranch. And so I guess, what would be a program or programs at the ranch that you think are particularly successful?
Well, I would say the tennis and pickleball, which might be the most controversial, but it's certainly the most well-known because of their prominence and location in our community. So because of that high participation rate, that would certainly be one element. And I know can be a polarizing topic in the community as well. But I've also been interested in exploring Mahjong and, the more game side of things, as well as the arts. I recently took some courses at the College of Marin community education courses for piano and tennis there as well. So I actually had a very different experience registering for those classes versus the ranch. So I'd like to also kind of bring some of that diversity into how the booking process works for the ranch and the website design.
That's great. In fact, my next question was going to be, what opportunities does the ranch have to better serve the community?
Yeah, certainly the website would be really a key way to reach more residents, to really have that full annual calendar of what's to come, and really understanding how do we reach out to more residents, how do we engage more of the adult community as well. And yeah, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for the website navigation.
That's great. Thanks so much.
So I just had a quick question, sort of along the lines of the planning commissioners, is that I believe there's the basic 3 meetings for the ranch. Is it 3 meetings?
Once every 2 months.
Once every 2 months. So it's 6 meetings and potentially additional ones, depending on what committee you may serve on. I just want to make sure that you feel you're able to make that commitment of time, because it's important when we put people on a committee that they actually make a commitment to go and attend. So I just wanted to make sure, obviously, and thank you very much for stepping forward and volunteering. But so I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I would hope to be more involved than just 6 times a year. So I certainly would do everything possible to be able to attend those meetings, and also make sure I have the context and the engagement needed to be effective during those meetings. I am expecting a baby in August. So depending on the timing there, and assuming I'm feeling good, I will do everything I can to be there. And I'm really lucky to have a lot of support to take care of our child when they come.
Thank you.
And you're going to register that baby at the ranch as soon as humanly possible, right?
Absolutely.
I think we heard tonight also from our representative to the Council on Aging, how important it is for our organizations like the Ranch or the library to be able to reach out to seniors. Not anything that's in your wheelhouse right now, but that would be an area that I would hope Belvedere representatives would focus on, and maybe help us to figure out the best ways to meet their needs and reach these people.
Absolutely.
So.
And we have 2 sets of parents here located in Marin. My in-laws just moved to Belvedere and are in Mallard Point now. And really empathizing with what Larry was saying about feeling isolated or living alone. As a natural, more introverted person, I have a lot of empathy for that. And finding ways that's really low risk and low commitment to get people to be more engaged.
Oh, thank you. That's interesting. That would be helpful. So anyone else have any questions for Maddie? Okay, well, thank you. Thanks again so much for coming here tonight and offering your services to us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And again, feel free to stay or go. Okay, next I'd like to invite Brian Chase up to the podium. And Brian, you've definitely heard the routine by now, so there's no surprise. You are well prepared.
I am very well prepared. Heard about this opportunity through the Belvedere Breeze.
Well done. As I said to everyone else, if you'd like to highlight anything or add anything to the letter that you submitted, this is the time to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Cooper and council members for hearing a little bit about my background this evening. I grew up in San Anselmo and have lived all over the state, but returned to Marin County a couple of years ago to move to Belvedere, and it's been a really wonderful place to be. It's a fantastic place, I think, because of the level of engagement and strength of the community. It's just wonderful to see so many people who care so much about the future of our city. I studied public policy, management, and planning as an undergraduate, and then went on to earn a Master of Public Administration. And I've been working as a public affairs consultant for over 10 years now, particularly in the technology space. Before that, I was the Director of Government Affairs for a Chamber of Commerce, as well as an Executive Director of a small community college foundation. So I do think I have some relevant experience to offer with regard to nonprofit management and also building community relations. So why the ranch in particular? To me, the ranch is really the glue but there are so many organizations in the Tiburon Peninsula that tie us together. But the ranch is one of those really important ones because it is such a strong social body. I've been a part of the tennis program for 2 years now. It's wonderful. I do private lessons, and then also I'm part of a tennis squad where I get to play with neighbors every week down at the Del Mar courts. I'm also a graduate of the Mahjong class, which I gifted my mother for her birthday, and she insisted I do it with her. So I'm now a very accomplished Mahjong player, at least according to the certificate. It was really wonderful experience. The ranch also does a lot of community programming that it's been a pleasure to be a part of. The Tiburon Classic Car Show. I raced in the Run Tiburon 10K. Though for the record, my favorite race is the Belvedere Challenge, of course, which was a lot of fun. But it's just a wonderful organization, great staff. I was just at the 50th anniversary trivia night at Tiburon Tavern. And again, the accessibility and the level of engagement from staff and the community with regard to our offerings are really very deeply meaningful to me. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have questions for Brian?
I will ask the same question again, which is of those three different sort of buckets of interest, from the financial side to the programming side to the volunteering side. Where do you see your strengths?
That's a very difficult question for me because I do volunteer in a lot of ways around town, and I can't help but think that would be something I would want to continue doing. However, I'm drawn more towards the finance side because I know how important finances are with really kind of some really financially constrained times, and the ranch survives on its programming largely. And so I think that the ranch needs to carefully consider where it puts its most important resource, the time, with regard to providing future programs. The value of the after school programs and the camp programs is a huge part of the revenue for the ranch, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity with regard to more high margin adult programming that can be offered, and I would really like to explore some of those opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for stepping forward. Oh, sorry.
No,
did
no,
you
go
want to
ahead.
go?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm number two. I'm always number two. Thank you, Brian, for stepping forward and volunteering. And I'm just going to have the same questions I've asked everyone, that the ranch has meetings every other month. Then if you serve on a committee, you have more commitment, and that you have the time in order to give that commitment to the city.
Absolutely. And that was, and my main, the first question I asked myself was whether or not I would have that time available. When I saw the call for volunteers, I thought, you know what, this is something that is deeply personal to me, but will I have the time to do it? Absolutely. I work largely from home and don't see any travel conflicts that would run into, that would become a problem for this role.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Burke.
I wanted to hear a little bit more. You were saying about certain adult programming that you thought would be an area of opportunity for the ranch. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking there?
Well, one of the programs I think would be really neat is, so the ranch offers adult programming ranging from health and fitness to the arts. I think we could do a bit more with regard to music. We have resources available that I've spoken to ranch staff about. I'm that passionate about it. I think it'd be great to have a piano program, for instance. I think it rounds out the individual and the community to branch out beyond sports and fitness. So that would be an example where qualified instructors using resources already available would be able to provide a service that would, I think, deliver significant revenue to the ranch without much time commitment.
Great.
Essentially, the ranch would be providing the administrative services and marketing, but then beyond that, it's compensating a piano instructor, for example. Whereas some of the other programs, which are very important, and again are the bread and butter for the organization, do actually require a lot of staffing and have greater expenses.
Great. And my other question was about, I think you've already answered it just in terms of what programs you think are particularly successful. I mean, I think I heard a number of those examples during your remarks. So
I'm biased. I love the tennis program. They keep me coming back every week.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, just real quick, no real questions, but just once again, thanking both you and Maddie for coming forward, and having such qualified candidates, I think is a testament to our community, but also a benefit to our community. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian. Great to see you again.
Very nice to see you.
And we will be making our decision later this evening. So feel free, as I said, to take off and have dinner if you haven't had it yet. We're jealous, but
hang in there. All right. Thanks a
okay.
lot.
Thanks again. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. So, yes, do we have public comment on this item? Jerry? You need to come up here, Jerry. Oh, I didn't see that Beth had that. Do you mind coming up here to the podium? Okay.
Walking is not what it could be, but
sorry.
I really appreciate just the opportunity. It won't take very long, and I know this is out of order.
But if it's out of order, we can't have you speak. It has to be about the
I
item.
sent you on your I sent you on your personal email what I wrote. Could
Okay.
you read it when the time is appropriate? Because I can't stay. My personal concerns right now. I have to get home.
Okay.
And so if you could read that, it's basically about my concern for more police.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, but we have to stay with protocol. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else that has a comment on the item, the interviews item?
No.
Okay, great. Then with that, we move to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that are considered to be non-controversial unless any item is specifically removed by any member of the council, staff, or public. The consent calendar will be adopted by one motion. Council will take public comment on all items on the consent calendar when the calendar is called. Do any council members have a question or want to pull any item on the consent calendar tonight? No? Okay. Is there anyone in the public that has a question or wanted to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I see none.
Okay, great. Then can I please have a motion to adopt items 8A through 8F?
So moved.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. We move on to an individual consent calendar that Vice Mayor Wilkinson will take over for me. I live within 500 feet of 332 San Rafael Avenue and will recuse myself from this vote. Do you want to read the thing? You want me to read it?
No, this is fine. So this is item number 9A for the individual consent calendar, which is a discussion and possible action to approve a revocable license for private improvements in the public right of way for the property at 322 San Rafael Avenue. Do we have a staff report?
This item is a consent calendar item. If you'd like a staff report, I think we could get
Then
one.
that's a no.
Okay.
In that case, I guess I'm just going to ask for a motion, correct? Yep, okay.
So I just have one question or I don't know if I have to pull it or not. I have one question. Is that when we give the revocable license, does it get automatically recorded or does it get recorded when they pull their building permit?
It's dependent on the applicant. Sometimes they'll record them before the building permit. Sometimes they don't.
So the only thing is that we recently had a project that was going to build something and pulled a revocable license, didn't build it and came back 7 years later, 6, 7 years later, and had that revocable license. And in the revocable license was things that we no longer allow to go in the revocable license. But yet, because it was recorded, we would have had to revoke it and then redo it, which did not happen. So my only concern is that we do a revocable license, the project never gets built. And someone comes in and it's 5 or 10 years later, and who knows what a revocable licenses will look at, in the future. So I'm just questioning if those can be approved and then just not record it until they come in to get their building permit.
Don't we record the license?
The county records them. Beth sends them the
Yeah.
paperwork and then they take it to the county to record it.
Okay.
I mean, we could, Pat, but honestly, I think it's, it might be hard to track on our, given all of the moving parts of all of these like larger building permit type projects. I mean, we could try to put sort of a tickler and track it or something, but
Well, it was just one project that we've had
it
an
was just a
issue with.
one-off, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
could do, we could make our best effort. I can talk to Brian about it and say like, I think the problem is though, like, if we're ready to issue the building permit, it takes a while to get recorded at the county. And so you have these two sort of government agencies, working together, and the timing doesn't always.
Not that it would be for this particular project, but I
No.
mean, just in general, could it be conditional on the project being built?
The
revocable license?
recordation of
Yeah,
the,
I mean, we are granting it conditioned on it being built as approved.
I think that the condition says that the revocable license has to be recorded prior to building permit issuance, though.
So, I mean, we're not gonna, I don't believe in making a project the focus point when they're before us. It's just, I
Right.
see this potentially, and maybe that you can just look at and maybe figure out a better process
Mhm.
so that we don't have that in the future.
Yes.
Because I mean, who knows what,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, we will.
So that was my only comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to approve 9A.
We do need public comment on that one too.
Beth, was any member of the public like to remove this item?
I see none.
My motion stands.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
When you're out there in the hall, you can read about all the other mayors. There was one man who served 2 6-year terms, 2 6-year terms.
What are you talking about?
There was a mayor, Mr. Trivia, there was a mayor out there that when you're out there not listening, so he served 2 6-year terms and then served 2 years after that. So a total of 14 years as mayor of Belvedere. Wow, okay. I'm glad we've moved on from that. So on to the next item, which is 10A. And this is an introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the city of Belvedere to implement the Marin Electric Bicycle Safety Pilot Program pursuant to Assembly Bill 1778. Do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. You may recall last month, the County of Marin presented an update on their progress in developing a model e-bike ordinance. This was in response to Damon Connolly's 1778 bill. It prohibits anyone under the age of 16 from operating a Class 2 e-bike. Anyone over 16 riding a Class 2 e-bike must wear a helmet, regardless of the age. A Class 2 e-bike is defined as any bike that can travel up to 20 miles per hour and has a throttle assist electric motor. Recent data from hospitals has shown that e-bikes are contributing more towards severe emergency room-related injuries, not only here in Marin, but across California and the nation. The county is testing this ordinance as a pilot project and has encouraged all agencies, Belvedere included, to adopt the model ordinance. It's likely the result that California will eventually follow suit. The ordinance presented this evening adds chapter 10.66 of the Belvedere Municipal Code defining a Class 2 e-bike. It requires helmets for Class 2 operators and prohibits anyone under the age of 16 from riding them. The ordinance also allows the city to impose a $25 citation for any violation. In lieu of paying that fine, a parent or a minor can attend the training course. There are online training courses currently available, but Chief Wu is also working with our neighboring police departments to see if the city can participate in a higher quality training program led by another agency. As we saw from last month's presentation, the county is handling the bulk of community messaging, focusing a lot of their outreach on schools and local bike clubs. So should you choose to approve the first reading this evening, we would return in June for a second reading. The ordinance effective date would be July 9th, which does correspond with the county's implementation efforts. I think that's about all I have, unless Jason or Andrew have anything else to add. Okay, we're open for questions.
Okay. Well, I'm really pleased that Belvedere's joining the rest of the county in this effort, because I think keeping children safe and keeping community members safe. We've heard a lot about it from the community and the concern with the e-bike riders being a little bit wild. So do we have any questions for staff?
I do.
Councilmember Burke? Oh, sorry.
A couple questions. I note not only in your staff report, but also in broader countywide discussions of AB 1778, that it's not a standalone enforcement condition. I mean, that sounds to me like we're not going to do anything. Like, well, in a sense, we're not going to enforce this unless there's a other violation associated with an accident or something like that. So, is that the case? That arguably it's an add-on fine more than it is an active enforcement?
Jason could probably answer that. It does address in the staff report. It's not a standalone enforcement operation. It's kind of secondary if there's another traffic stop, or if there's, I would think, some kind of an egregious violation that's community complaint driven, something along those lines. But Jason, you can add.
The question, and the reason for that is that it's some of the enforcement aspect, if you strictly based on the language, it is a little bit tough to discern. For example, how do you determine someone based on look if someone's only 15 or 16? That in of itself does create a problem. Whereas a lot of time when the violation occurred, it's usually associated with some type of existing vehicle code violation, such or existing municipal code violations. For example, like vehicle code violation would be running stop signs or riding on a sidewalk. Well, I take that as riding on sidewalk would be prohibited under the municipal code or fancy riding. So those are very observable. Those are objective. They're not subjective, like, for example, age. Now, obviously, there may be instances if we see someone who's clearly that we can legally articulate that this person, it's clearly not 16 years or older, something like that, then we obviously could take as a primary. But generally speaking, these are some of the challenges that's why countywide, most of these violations are treating as a secondary offense, because it's easier to catch as a vehicle violations.
I mean, I assume, it's lumped into this, but I assume if someone's not wearing a helmet, that's a stoppable offense. So that should be more enforceable, I would think.
That's correct.
And is that from a profiling perspective? Is that just from an inconvenience perspective? Is it from it's a challengeable legal problem if you assume someone's younger than 16 and ask them for some ID, or they don't have ID?
That
forgive my
really
layman's perspective on that.
correct. So that aspect of it really comes down to the Fourth Amendment violation, a Fourth Amendment issue. What is the right for the police officer to detain or you stop someone is in essence a seizure without probable cause?
I understand. Okay. Further, is tandem riding not part of this? AB 1778? Or is that under a tandem riding? Two people on a bike, or is
In our existing municipal code.
So that's already handled
Correct.
elsewhere. Have we considered, because I do know that Mill Valley and San Anselmo do have higher fines. It does seem that $25 is a bit of a throwaway, and no one's going to go to the traffic school or make the effort to, in a sense, even alter their behavior. I wonder if we would consider a higher fine. Have you considered that? Have other marin cities beyond San Anselmo and Mill Valley, which I mentioned, I did a little research, do have a $100 fine, and even higher than that if it's on specific, places like parks and places they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, Councilmember Mark, we didn't do a sort of comprehensive countywide research in terms of what the fines are being imposed. I guess I'm not surprised that some jurisdictions find it more appropriate to charge a higher fine. We took the $25 figure from the county's model ordinance. That's kind of the default.
Thank you.
But could we choose to increase that here tonight?
I'm double checking right now to see whether there's any limit on that, but hopefully I'll be able to get back to you in just a minute or so.
I have a follow-up question. So I was driving out at night, last night or the night before, and there were two lunatics on one of these bikes, and your police officer pulled them over. I think they didn't have their lights on. I'm curious, with that, they would be able, because they were definitely underage, I assume, able to ask for ID, but these kids won't have ID. So I'm just curious what happens exactly. Like, how do you do any enforcement? Because kids don't carry ID.
I think this is an issue regarding officers' discretion. Oftentimes, especially in dealing with younger folks, oftentimes parental pressure has a greater influence in changing his behavior than, say, a citation. And it's really a balance for us. The whole point is to educate. And so in those instances, I'm not exactly sure. I think the question may be, what was the outcome?
Well, I can tell you what the outcome was, because I was driving back later and the lunatics were driving down the hill fast as anything, still with no lights on. So the police pulling them over had no effect whatsoever.
Well, I'm not sure, there's a possibility that they were cited. I don't have the specifics.
Okay. Because this feels, it sounds nice on paper. It just feels completely unenforceable and has no teeth whatsoever. I understand that it's the education component that we're hoping has most effect, and it's really guiding parents to stop allowing their kids to have these bikes. But the way this is sort of explained doesn't feel like it's meaningful.
I don't know if you want to respond to the last question, but responding to your earlier question, Councilmember Wilkinson, or sorry, Vice Mayor Wilkinson. So the state law authorizing this ordinance, AB 1778, only specifies a $25 fine for any violation. So I'm very interested to look at some of these other jurisdictions' ordinances. Maybe they have a more aggressive reading of state law, but that doesn't seem to be what is set forth in the AB 1778. Obviously, this ordinance is going to come back to you a second time, so I certainly can look into it further before the second hearing in the matter.
Okay, but Jason, I just want, so when a police officer pulls over a kid who's driving recklessly, is it a requirement for the child to actually even identify themselves?
Yes, per California Vehicle Code, whenever a person, whether stopped for vehicle code violations or they're detained lawfully, they have to present a form of ID of some sort.
So kids don't carry IDs, so what do they do?
School ID problem. Well, and then again, this is where an officer discretion really kind of comes into play. Get information from the kids and contact the parents would probably be most appropriate form of identification.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My question was already answered. It's regarding the fee. I think if we can make it higher, it should be higher. I mean, $25 doesn't seem like consequential. I mean, and if you want to apply parental pressure, I think, whatever it is in the other jurisdictions or municipalities, $100 seems much more compelling.
Yeah, I will take a closer look at that before the second reading ordinance. Thank you.
Did you have a question? Okay. I also had the same question of, can we make our ordinance more strict than AB 1778? And that would be one of the areas.
Were there other ways, Mayor Cooper, that you wanted to make it more strict other
Well,
than increasing the
I
fine?
think what's confusing to me, and I don't think we can do this, but I did have a question about it, is say you stop a child and they're on a class 2 bike and they're not 16. Then they get a ticket for whatever amount we finally wind up with, but they still keep the bike? I mean, is there any follow-up as far as, well, you're on an illegal bike? Is there anything that we can add, excuse me, add that would, it just doesn't make sense to me that they're on an illegal bike. We give them a ticket for $25, but they still keep the bike.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in those instances, what we would do is instead of having the child ride the bike home, we would take the bike and call the parents and have them
Okay.
pick up the bike.
Okay.
Because clearly we can't allow them to continue the violations.
Right. That's what, I didn't see anything in our ordinance, but I understand that that's more how the police would handle it. Okay. Oh, I think that's a great answer. I mean, it's welcome. It's a welcome answer to know they don't just get to keep writing it. If there are no other questions, okay.
I have one. Andrew, in your investigation of the amounts, I think Mill Valley and San Anselmo got around it by parsing where the infraction took place. And I think they elevated, in my recollection, they elevated sidewalks, parks, open spaces, places that weren't just a street and weren't a normal bike route. So if which these bikes can be ridden on, if they're already in a heightened area, they had a second tier of pricing.
So it may have been a tiered.
It might have been a reach
Yeah.
code beyond what the 1778 is authorizing to some degree. But if it's at all possible, more broadly, I would recommend a $100 type fee as opposed to the 25, just to put a little more teeth in it, as we've talked about, so that it's not a completely something that doesn't have any sort of motivational effect. And I agree with Councilmember Wilkinson that, you say it's about educating the parents to provide greater guidance. I don't know. I think having that kid have some trouble, getting his bike back, and the parents becoming a problem for them is what we want to do, not just, hopefully they learn their parental lessons and keep the kid from riding it, which I'm not sure will happen.
So I actually attended that TAM meeting where they rolled this out in January. And a lot of the conversation that's being held here was also held at the TAM meeting. And greatly along the lines of Vice Mayor Wilkinson and Councilmember Mark, in that, a little more teeth to make it more difficult. And the response that came from the staff is that they're trying just to get this, every city in the county to adopt this ordinance so that if a kid from Tiburon or Mill Valley is racing through Belvedere and the Belvedere police stop them, that it's kind of cohesive thing. And I know, is it Carmen Urban from Mill Valley? Urban Carmel from Mill Valley. And his point is that if you don't make it uncomfortable for the parents and hold them responsible, giving a $25 fine is, Starbucks for the family. So I think that this probably will evolve over time. And I think the county was just trying to get everybody on the same page so that it could be enforced across boundaries. Kids going to different cities for schools and that.
Jason, presumably when you do your quarterly updates, this will be new data that you'll be providing about how many kids you're pulling over and so forth?
We can, if the council would like to have that included.
I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll open this up for public comment. Does anyone here have a question or comment on this item? Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, we have Sandra Donnell.
Okay.
Hello,
Hi,
yes. I am on-
Sandy.
Hi, 137 Golden Gate Avenue. And I think one of the things is the emphasis on education. I think a fine is, $25 means nothing. And forcing kids to understand the rules. I think the kids who are riding, if you go at 3 o'clock and you go down the bike path or Sanderfall Avenue, pretty clearly those kids are from Del Mar. They're not from Redwood High School. So they're under 16. And I've been, lots and lots. There's a boy who lives down the road from us who they don't understand you pass on the left. So he passed right in front of Justin in front of our garage on the right as Justin was about to turn into the garage. They do not stop at stop signs. Followed a girl down Sanderfall Avenue, right through Marin, right through Laurel. Followed a boy 2 days ago who was on his cell phone in front of City Hall, blew through the stop sign, the new erected stop sign, went up Laurel, blew through the Bayview stop sign and went up Bayview. So I think really education, I don't think they know the rules of the road at all. And to me, that's one of the biggest issues. Not only at 14 should you be riding a bike like that, you really need to understand the rules of the road. So please emphasize education. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Is there anyone else on Zoom, Beth?
Yes, we have Mr. Rothman.
Okay.
I'm going.
Hi, Mr. Rothman.
I'm going to try it again. Is it okay now?
Yes, this is much better.
Thank you so much. It must have been a loose wire.
Maybe.
At any rate, does this mean that nobody under 16 can ride any electric bike? Is there a class 1 that they could ride, or that's the end of electric bikes for people under 16? The second question I have is, I think that since Chief Wu wisely pointed out that if they're riding illegally, then they take the bike to the police station until such time as the parents come and pick it up, because you wouldn't allow the rider to continue to violate the law. frankly, I think that the trouble that the parents of coming to the police station to get the bike and all, frankly, I think that that would be enough of a discouragement. Not that a $50 fine would be, something horrible, but I think it's the inconvenience of and maybe embarrassment of the parents having to come to the police station to take care of it. But I would also like to know whether that means that nobody under 16 is allowed to ride any electric bike. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we can answer that under 16, you're allowed to ride a class 1 e-bike, which they have to pedal at the same time. It is not simply a throttle e-bike as the class 2 and 3 are. So class 1 is allowed for younger kids because it requires, if you stop pedaling, the bike doesn't keep going.
But for the people who are riding, are they any more likely to know the traffic rules because they're pedaling than if they're not pedaling?
No, no. I mean, you still need the education, as you're saying that, but you asked one question, if younger kids could ride an e-bike, and they can, they're allowed to ride a class 1. They still have to follow all traffic laws. They have to obey all those laws. They have to ride alone. They have to wear a helmet, etc.
And they're innately slower.
And they're slower. Yeah, they don't go as fast.
What they can't go over 20 miles an hour. The class 1, is that the difference?
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so
Can I just ask one follow-up question to Jason? Is either Tiburon or Belvedere Police Force going into the school districts to do any education through the school system here?
The school itself they've banned certain things already, so they are taking it very proactive. We've had discussions before, but we have not any follow-up, nor have we been requested to provide any additional education.
So are they on campus? It's not possible to take anything but a class 1 bike, is that right?
It is my understanding that the Reach School District have banned certain bikes for now, like for example, the Super 73s, and certainly the motorized scooters, they banned those. So they're not allowed to have them on campus.
Okay, because Jane's absolutely right that in the afternoons, you definitely see all these kids riding back from Del Mar on these bikes. So they're storing them somewhere at school.
Yes, and that's a different issue regarding not parking their bikes at school.
Okay.
So in that same town meeting, it's very educational. You missed it, Peter. There are schools, I don't think it was at Del Mar, but there are other middle schools where people in the area are renting out spaces for kids to park their car during the school day, not on campus, but very close by.
Bike.
The bike,
Park the
yeah.
bike.
So just to clarify, Andrew, it sounds like if you're able to, within the parameters of the model ordinance, raise the price, I guess that our instructions or our guidance would be to do so. But to Pat's perspective on being consistent with the county, I guess the format is pretty much what we'd like to keep. And I guess for consistency's sake and work on it, we can leave the price, but our guidance would be to raise it if possible. And I think that's minimal enough to serve as a first reading, I would think.
Yeah, so my suggestion, if the council's comfortable with it, is to approve this version on our first reading. And certainly we'll provide more information to council. And if there's an upward adjustment possible, we could do it at the second reading.
That sounds great.
But unfortunately, right now, I can't give you an exact number or boundary.
I do think, though, since it's come up a few times from both the council and also the community, I think we need to give more thought about how do we inspire a more formal education program that might happen, I think, to your point, Sally, in the schools. Maybe it's something that could happen through the ranch, but I know that's not part of this reading. But I do think that we should take that on board, or the city should, to try and get that to happen in some formal way in the community as soon as possible.
Well, I think when the county came, when the young gal came at the last meeting.
Yeah.
She said there was going to be a large education component,
gonna do a
PR,
campaign,
a
yeah.
campaign. And so I think we be active, I'm anxious to see what they're going to
Yeah, we should
send
understand
out
what
to
that is. because
communities.
My understanding was that more about people under 16 couldn't ride class 2 bikes. They needed to wear a helmet if you were riding a class 2 bike. I think some of the comments that have come up about just understanding the rules of the road.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
should you stop at a stop sign or not? I mean, are you,
Well,
supposed to
all
pass on the
bikes,
left or
I
the right?
think all bikes are required to follow the rules of the road.
Yeah.
Whether you're in an e-bike or not. And we do know that they don't either. So if you're in a car and you're seeing bikers, they don't stop.
Right.
Oftentimes not everyone, but often don't stop at stop signs. So kids aren't used to seeing people on bikes
Yeah.
stop, which is unfortunate. So
To keep an eye, I don't think that campaign will address the issues that we just raised.
yeah, we'll have to see, I guess. So I think the other thing I tried to follow up on one of the questions I had last time, which was what can parents do who have inadvertently bought a child a class 2 e-bike? And I visited a reputable e-bike store in Larkspur, and he said that they will take them. So if a parent has bought a class 2 e-bike and it has not been altered and it was not bought online and it's legal, it hasn't been altered to override the speed or any of those things that reputable e-bike stores are willing to take them in and then sell a class 1 bike to the appropriate age group. So I think, that's another piece that we can hopefully share with people. So, okay, then I think what you need from us is a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-4 for the first reading of implementing the Marin Electric Bike Safety Pilot Program.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then is that all you need tonight? Okay. Okay, so our other scheduled items, we have 11A, preliminary review and discussion of the annual operating budget and capital improvement program for the city for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. I just want to thank our city manager, Robert, and thank our director of finance, Helga, Vice Mayor Wilkinson, City Council Member Mark, for all your work in helping to prepare this draft budget, and also to the Finance Committee members, McCaskill, Fader, Lyons, Walker, and Wilton, for their thoughtful review of next year's budget. And I just want to remind the public that our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. And off to you, Helga.
So good evening, Mayor Cooper and council. Before you today is the preliminary operating and capital budget for fiscal year 25-26. The budget presented tonight demonstrates prudent financial management, emphasizes quality services, maintains infrastructure, and includes long-term planning in an unpredictable economic climate. The city's revenue primarily stems from strong property tax base, which accounts for over 70% of our total revenue. Additionally, we are in the process of implementing a new approved fee schedule that will take effect on July 1st, 2025. The total budget for fiscal year 25-26 is slightly over 14.2 million, making it the largest in Belvedere's history. This increase is primarily due to a one-time extraordinary capital outlay of 3.8 million for the Beach Road Stabilization Project in the first 2 years. This project has been planned for several years with allocations to the Critical Infrastructure Reserve Fund to build up that fund's balance in anticipation of covering the majority of this expenditure. So a few highlights from the proposed expenditures. From the general fund, a 3-year contract negotiated with represented and non-represented groups starting in fiscal year 23-24 includes a 10% cost of living adjustment over 3 years, with a 3% increase for fiscal year 25-26. $25,000 is allocated for the city's 2030 climate action plan, and $40,000 is designated for a special project manager for the Ballard Point project, with reimbursement upon building permit issuance. The Tiburon Fire expects a 7.5% increase in their contract costs for the next fiscal year, totaling $2.48 million due to rising district expenditures and capital improvements. From the Capital Equipment Fund, the budget allocates $290,000 to replace the 25-year-old Public Works street sweeper, which is expensive to maintain and parts are becoming difficult to find. For the police department, we are allocating $110,000 to replace one black and white vehicle with a hybrid, including the necessary equipment. Additionally, $30,000 is for new in-car mobile data computers, and $17,000 will fund the replacement of 6 Flock automatic license plate reader cameras, which have reached the end of their useful life. This new system will also be compatible with other agencies in Marin. From the Capital Improvement Fund, the proposed budget allocates $3.79 million for the Beach Road Stabilization Project, set to begin in spring of 2026 and be completed in fiscal year 26-27. Again, this is a thoughtfully planned expenditure with funding from the general fund's excess fund balance and withdrawals from the critical infrastructure reserve that has been built up over the past few years in anticipation of this project. Over the next 5 years, we will allocate each year $80,000 for lane improvement projects, $15,000 for vegetation management and fire fuel reduction, and $20,000 for the city's emergency evacuation plan, along with additional capital projects. Funding may also come from partner agencies and private donations. The city's core service expenditures have risen significantly. The fire and EMS service contract is expected to increase, as I said, by 7.5%, but only 47% of this is covered by the fire tax, which grows at a much slower rate. There has been a rise in legal costs, largely due to lawsuits from homeowners whose construction projects have exceeded the city's time limits by several months and years, resulting in substantial fines. These construction time limits are designed to minimize the negative impacts of prolonged construction on neighbors and the community. These lawsuits fall outside the city's insurance coverage, requiring full legal defense to be paid from taxpayer funds. This creates a financial burden, but the city is committed to enforcing its ordinances and collecting the fines lawfully due. Personnel costs are the largest expense in each department, with staffing costs expected to rise by 13.7% due to increased pension and healthcare obligations. Health insurance costs have surged partly from more employees enrolling in family plans. Pension costs are projected to increase over the next 5 years as CalPERS investment returns shift shortfalls to the employers, with the city's unfunded accrued liability, according to the CalPERS estimates, rising from $118,000 in the current fiscal year to $239,000 in fiscal year 25-26, and continuing to escalate to $477,000 by fiscal year 29-30. And this brings us to a summary of the proposed budget. The proposed budget anticipates total operating revenue of $10.8 million and total operating expenditures of $10.1 million, resulting in an operating surplus of $712,000. Capital revenues are estimated at $576,000, while capital expenditures are projected to be $4.13 million. leading to a capital fund deficit of 3.55 million, primarily due to the 2.6 million in expenditures for the Beach Road Stabilization Project next year. In summary, total revenues are expected to reach 11.4 million, with total expenditures anticipated to be 14.2 million, creating a budget deficit of 2.8 million. Again, the deficit reflects the extraordinary cost associated with the Beach Road project. Funding will come from excess fund balance in the general fund and the majority from withdrawals from the Critical Infrastructure Reserve Fund, which have accumulated over recent years in anticipation of financing this specific project. And this slide presents the estimated fund balances at June 30th, 2026. The general fund is projected to begin fiscal year 25-26 with a starting balance of 6.13 million, which is anticipated to exceed the reserve target for fiscal year 24-25 by 1.8 million. We anticipate 1.37 million in transfers out to cover this year's capital expenditures, along with 300,000 allocated to the Section 115 pension fund and 550,000 allocated to the Critical Infrastructure Reserve. This will leave a general fund ending balance of 4.62 million. The Critical Infrastructure Reserve Fund reflects the 2.18 million transfer out to the Capital Improvement Fund, along with the transfer in from the general fund of 550,000, leaving a balance of just over 900,000. This balance will be used in fiscal year 26-27 to help cover the remaining construction costs for the stabilization project. The budget, as submitted, anticipates returning to a more normal state after the first 2 years of the budget, allowing the city to replenish the Critical Infrastructure Reserve Fund to over 1 million by the end of the forecast period. The city's total budget historically shows an upward trend, indicating long-term fiscal growth, with revenues typically exceeding expenditures. Notably, expenditures exceed revenues in 25-26 due to the Beach Road project. Fiscal year 22-23 and fiscal year 23-24 experienced the largest surpluses, fueled by increased property tax revenues and planning projects during the COVID period. After fiscal year 26-27, both revenues and expenditures rise at a more modest rate, reflecting a more stabilized budget. And now for reserves. The budget maintains the city's reserve policy goal of 6 months of the following year's operating expenditures. The primary purpose is to ensure financial stability and operational continuity during periods of economic uncertainty, unanticipated expenses, or unforeseen events such as natural disasters. The reserve policy is a prudent guideline for the city's financial planning, and having a healthy reserve is more important than ever in today's changing economic environment. In 2024, the city transitioned from the local agency investment fund to CalTrust for investment of our fund balances. This change has consistently provided better returns, resulting in over 370,000 in earnings for the current fiscal year to date. These funds are reviewed quarterly and remain in low-risk, interest-bearing investments. And this slide shows the history of the general fund's actual ending fund balance. The fiscal year 24-25 estimated general fund balance of 6.13 million, and it shows the 5-year projections. The green line reflects the council's reserve policy goal. And as you can see, the proposed budget does meet the reserve policy goal for the next 5 years. And for the next steps, first of all, we are asking for your input today, and we'll take your suggestions into consideration while we continue to refine our budget projections. And we'll bring the budget back to the council for adoption on June 9th after we conduct the public hearing. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Very complete, easy to understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any questions about the budget? Councilmember Burke.
Sure. Thank you. First, to you and the Finance Committee and the rest of staff. This is my first experience with the budget as a council person. And it's really impressive in terms of just the thoughtfulness and the completeness, the transparency, and then just how it makes sense. So I really appreciate it. I thought the memo was really well written. My only main question, I'll start with the highest level question. If you go to 22 in the budget document, it just gives you an overview of the expenses. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about these expenses in the growth year over year. So from 24-25 to 25-26 in total, we're going up by about 13.9%. And obviously that's driven by the components above that total. And so I was wondering if you could just talk about what's happening in some of the big changes like regular salaries. I think you did cover some of that in your presentation, but I'd love to hear a little bit more context if helpful or if possible. Also health insurance and then other personnel costs. Those seem to be the big drivers of that growth.
Yeah, so thank you, Councilmember Burke. So like I mentioned, there's the 3% cost of living adjustment for the salaries. And then we also budget salaries at the top level. So whether somebody's at the top or not, we still budget for that. So
there's
that's
a buffer of sorts or a bit of a contingency on that
Yes.
particular category of expense.
correct. And then, as I mentioned, the pension costs are increasing next year. And then the demographics of our staff and what they have chosen for insurance, most are under the family plan now. So, and the insurance costs have gone up by
I don't need the specific number. I know it's, yeah.
Yeah, so the insurance across the
gone
board
up
of the different
significantly.
plans have gone up from like 5 to 13%.
Wow.
So
And then in other personnel costs, what would be some of the things that's driving that change? That's gone up like 28%, 28.9%.
So that would be like workers' comp. Uniform pay, that hasn't really changed, but workers' comp,
Contracted, oh no, that wouldn't be temporary. That's on the second item.
Medicare cost.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's related to salaries.
Thank you. Actually, why don't I hold it there? I had a more granular question, but I'll save it till some of the other council members have a chance to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Can I just jump in on the back of that? Workers' comp rates go up according to our experience, correct, Helga?
That's correct.
And so the reason there's been a big jump is because we've been dealing with a lot of those claims this year.
We've had a few claims, yes.
Okay. And then the only other question I had on the salary side, obviously the number for CalPERS and pension debt is very large. That doesn't include the 300,000 that we also contribute to our Section 115, or does it include that?
That it does not.
So that's
include
an
that.
additional cost. So we're over $1 million a year in pension costs.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? No?
Okay, can I go back?
You
then?
do, sure.
Well, this is, actually, I just wanted a clarification. This is on page 50 of the document. I think this is good news. I just want to highlight it and be sure that I understand it, as does the rest of the community. So if you look at the revenue, we're seeing some significant jumps in revenue in a couple of different categories, specifically the licenses and permits, I believe, and then also service charges. And that's a reflection of the new fee approach that we just put in place.
Yes.
Or
and
that will be
out-
put in place actually starting in July.
It is in the outer years. We didn't budget for any of the fee increase for 25, 26, but we started phasing it in, starting in 26, 27.
And we'd reached the 92% in what year?
In the last year,
In the last year.
29, 30.
So that would be 92% recovery of
Correct.
fees. That's great.
Correct.
And then the reason to not include anything in 25, 26 is,
So that we can get kind of a baseline for what how the fees will. So we can see how the fees will come in over the new year, and then we can determine and have a better projection for the next
for the outer
budget
years.
cycle. Yes.
That's great. So there's a possibility that there could be some of that revenue experienced in 25, 26, but at this point, it's too speculative to actually budget for it.
Right, and it was best practice from ClearSource Financial when they did their presentation that it's best practice not to budget for any increase in the first year.
Great, thanks so much. Then the last question was for Tony. For the beach stabilization project, I know you feel really good about the number. Hand on heart, it's going to stay at 3.8. No, I'm kidding. But one of the issues that's obviously going to impact that number is tariffs. And I'm just wondering, is there any way for us to accelerate that work or to manage that work differently? I don't think any of us know exactly how tariffs are going to affect a project like that and when, but how are you thinking about that, or what, if anything, could we do to mitigate it?
Yeah. Thank you, excuse me, Councilmember Burke.
Or just Kevin, it's good.
So, yeah, it's definitely at the front of our mind and also of the design engineering team. At this point, it's very difficult to try and program anything into the costs, but what we're planning to do is obtain thorough estimates at several points through the design process. So once we have a 30% design, we get a cost estimate for construction, and then again at the 60% level, and then again at the 95% level. So as we get closer and closer, and know more and more detail about the project, we update our knowledge of what the costs will be.
Great, thank you.
And Tony, can I ask, do you anticipate actually spending that $2+ million by the end of 2026? Is that the goal, it said starting the project in the spring. So I was curious if, I know there's costs ramping up to the beginning of it, but you anticipate that all that money will be spent in this fiscal year, coming up year?
That's quite hard to say. That timeline is, it's conceptual in a way. There are a few things that could hold it up, but spring is probably the soonest we could anticipate starting construction, and that is what we're aiming for. So if that does happen, if it does go ahead according to the timeline that the design engineers believe can be achieved, then yes, we will spend most of that. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Are there any other questions? Anyone? I just wanted to be sure that I was clear in looking at the parentheses deficit numbers there, that essentially that's a snapshot of income and expenses without bringing in the fact of having a balance coming forward from the previous year. So we're going to be bringing forward a ending balance from this year, hopefully the 6 million, and then that becomes what's able to.
That becomes the beginning balance.
The beginning
for
balance. So
fiscal year
then.
25, 26 for the
Okay.
general fund.
So the deficit is only a picture of the income and the expenses, but not the actual budget.
not the ending fund balance.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just real quick, on that slide, by the way, I think you're missing parentheses on that 1.5.
Oh, yes, yes, you're correct. Yes.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll open up to public comment. If anyone has a question or a comment on the budget item tonight, or this is our first reading, so this is the time to bring up any of your comments. Thank you. Ken Johnson, if you'd like to come up.
Good evening, Ken Johnson, 16 Leeward. I realize it's like a balloon, you push on one and it comes out somewhere. Maybe we should be talking about having a bigger balloon, because I think the job you have and the demands that we have and needs in our community have exceeded the income. And we might, I don't know when our, they call it a fire measure, but that seems to be also a large portion of the budget. I don't know when that comes up again, but you might consider that as a form of getting higher income. But I'm here basically because my understanding at the annual meeting and then with the workshop, I'd like to put a pitch in for the police department, because I think we've been, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, working with about 4 patrol officers since last fall, maybe October or so. At least maybe I have my information wrong, but I believe we're working 12-hour shifts. I think that we haven't considered the personnel issues of the police department. We've been talking about numbers, what they cost, and I think that that's something that shouldn't be avoided. So I'm here just to ask that you give that a priority. And I consider, when you get into the numbers, what it costs for a replacement of a police officer, the time it takes to train, the double time on the officers. You're also asking more police questions about now the additional duties of, how educating, helping, and citing children in the afternoon. That's another job. But basically, I think that the problem I'm concerned with, especially in the evening, is our coverage. And the police department, I think, is a little bit like insurance. You keep cutting it back, you don't want to pay for it, but when something happens, then you want more. And I think it's really important in our community. We've had a great, great record. I think we can keep it, but I do believe you should give a priority to adding 1 more patrol officer the best you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on the topic of the budget or any priorities? Andrew, can I ask you, the resident Jerry Miller that was here earlier and said she had sent me an email. Am I allowed to read that on her behalf?
Yes, Mayor, you may.
And this would be an appropriate time?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from Jerry Miller, who was not able to stay. She said, "I'm here today in person to express my concerns about the need for a larger Belvedere police force. As many of you know, my home was burglarized several months ago. The Belvedere police has not had the capacity to track down the robbers. When I've called to ask about the progress, unfortunately, I've been told that they do not have enough personnel. Some people have been sick or unable to work. We live in a very affluent neighborhood. We pay high taxes. I know how upset people were when they heard about my home being robbed. I know that I am not alone in wanting this situation remedied, and yet at our meeting today, this was not even on the agenda. People need to weigh in on this issue." And that's, as I said, from Jerry Miller. So do we have people on Zoom?
Yes, we have 2 hands raised. Mr. Rothman.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I was disturbed to see that you didn't go for 100% recovery. You're still leaving with 80% recovery on the fees. You're still leaving $200,000 on the table. And that $200,000 is a subsidy that the taxpayers are giving to people building very expensive projects who are not paying the full cost of their permits. I believe that it should be 100% recovery. And the fact that we made a mistake by not doing it much sooner doesn't mean we should go on making a partial mistake by not correcting the whole thing all at once. With respect to the lawsuits and the legal expenses, I would appreciate knowing whether if someone sues because they don't like the overtime fine, whether if they lose the case, they have to pay our legal expenses, or whether we have to pay the legal expenses, which of course gives an incentive for us to settle, maybe against what's really justifiable. So I would like to know that answer. With respect to the retirement fund, I'm sorry, I'm no expert on it, but I heard it said that if the returns on the investments that the retirement fund makes are not adequate, then the city has to make up the whole difference. Well, that doesn't seem right to me. Why shouldn't the employees have to make up part of that shortfall? And the last thing is with respect to the seawall. I've been around for a long time, and I remember the engineers explaining that the reason that the seawall is giving way along Beach Road is because there's nothing underneath the road, and that the waves, even though they're not enormous, except for a couple of times a year, they really gradually wash away all the underpinnings. Now, on San Rafael Avenue, many years ago, I think it was 1984, they put in these large rocks, which stopped the wave force, and San Rafael Avenue has not been declining since then. I would like to know whether it would be possible for you to look into putting large boulders to protect the portions of the seawall on Beach Road that have not already collapsed in order to prevent further collapse. Also, I would like to point out with respect to the police force that we've had trouble attracting police, and there are various reasons for this. But one thing that I think does make the situation worse is if the police that we have are having to work longer and longer hours under more and more stress from the longer hours, that really doesn't make it appealing for new police officers, highly qualified ones, to come to Belvedere. Thank you very much for taking my input.
Thank you.
We have Jock Putney. Putney.
Okay, Jock, I think we're able to hear you. If you want to start, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. Fantastic. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My main concern tonight is with regards to the budget and the police department. I understand that it's difficult to balance budgets as a business person, and I would say that I think that you're doing a great job. The one question I have for you is, has the city actually surveyed the entire population of Belvedere with regards to this issue to try to find out exactly how the residents of Belvedere feel about the current situation with our police force?
No, we have not surveyed the community.
Well,
Obviously, our meetings are all open to the public, and people
Sure.
can attend just like you.
Sure. And I think, unfortunately, Mayor Cooper, some people might not be attuned to the issues. And my hope is that from this meeting that you would actually take the time to survey the population of Belvedere and try to understand and present the issues. Officers who are overworked, unable to attend training. I mean, I have to say, I feel it's a moral issue, really. when we ask officers to put their lives on the line for us, and we don't equip them in the way that best protects them, it's sort of out of balance. So I would simply ask you to survey the residents of Belvedere and ask them what they expect from the police force in Belvedere, and to take into consideration all of the ramifications. I mean, I've heard a lot of great things this evening about enforcement around e-bikes. I think when I was a kid here, they were trying to stop us from riding our skateboards down Golden Gate Avenue without helmets. So my point to you is that the police force is vital. And we all know that when we get overworked, we get burned out. And I think that it's important to find a balance here that works for everyone. And I hope that you'll take the time to actually survey the residents before you make any decisions moving forward. Thank you for giving me the time to speak.
Okay, thank you so much for calling in and for your suggestions. Okay, sure. Paige, make sure the microphone's on. There's a little button.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Paige Peterson, 216 Centerville Avenue. I totally concur with Ken Johnson and Jock Putney. I think that we really should consider another police officer. I had a terrible accident at my house a year and a half ago with a child who had a second DUI and came 100 miles an hour down Centerville Avenue and hit our house and hit Ben Barnes' house. And I'm now a senior citizen, and I'm a single woman living here. And I sometimes find it unnerving that there's only one police officer on duty at night. And so I just would like the council to please consider adding another police officer to the police force.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks. Is there anyone else on Zoom?
No.
Okay, anyone else here on this topic? Dr. Rothman asked quite a few questions, and Councilmember Mark is willing to answer some of them. I don't know
Yeah,
about all of them.
Bill,
but
I
some
took
of
some notes, so it's perfectly fine to answer these questions. Andrew? That's within the scope of the budget.
Yes, within the scope of the agenda item, yes.
Yeah, and Bill, thank you for keeping your questions within the scope of the budget item. You talked about cost recovery and how we're leaving money on the table. Really, the only things on a fee basis that we're not seeking to recover are a few historic preservation fees and the scope of our general plan. Everything else, our goal is to achieve 100% cost recovery of everything else. We're just not budgeting to achieve that within the first few years after this year, because we don't know whether that will be realistic or not. We want to get a baseline, as Helga described, to see if we're able to. That doesn't mean we're not trying to achieve that full recovery, with the exception of a few areas, like I said, which have a broader community benefit beyond the individual project. You talked about CTL legal fees. Certainly when someone who doesn't like their fee for going over their allotted time sues us, we have an opportunity to recover some fees, but certainly not all the fees that we incur. And it does become a taxpayer burden to ensure that all of our projects are kept to a minimum disturbance of the community and that we all play by the same rules. So not as much as we'd like. As far as the pension obligations, I'll defer that to Sally, but my sense is those are the rules and we have to live by them. The seawall, you mentioned riprap, would that be a benefit for us to consider? I know that Tony and company, as they're looking at this, are looking at the stabilization of the roads as well as the undermining of it. So I think the solution they have in mind tackles both those problems. I don't know whether with those steel driven down the riprap would be superfluous. My sense is it would be, but I know that they have and will consider all options going forward. And your point is well taken about the police. We've heard that tonight. So I think that's all your questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Mark, for taking that on. Okay, since we have no more questions, then we'll come back to the council for discussion. And does anyone want to begin? Any thoughts? Councilmember, Vice Mayor Wilkinson.
So I'll begin. Where do I begin? So I think the reason that we maintain our financial stability so well is that we do budget so conservatively. And so when these surprise expenditures come up, we have either already planned for them or we find room within our budget to be able to achieve them. But we're a small city with constrained revenue streams and expenses which we unfortunately cannot control, particularly in relation to pensions and in relation to fire and our contract for fire, which keeps going up at an accelerated rate. I hear everything that community members have said about our police department, and I just wanted to reflect back on a fire survey that we did do. We had a pollster come in and do a professional survey to get a sense of community willingness to pay higher taxes to fund emergency services. And I cannot remember whether it was just fire or whether it included police. I think it alluded to police at least. And it was a flat no. There was no appetite for higher taxes to fund those things. And so we've been working really hard to find alternative solutions. And so we've been really looking at our revenue, other revenue streams to see whether we're able to raise revenues, and hence the push to increase user fees to a more appropriate rate to gain back money there. And we've made other tweaks as well as controlling our expenditures. But we are where we are, and we have this very important capital expenditure that we have to undertake. So whilst hearing the desire to fund extra police officers within this budget, we can't achieve that unless we cut something else. And then the question is always, what are we going to cut? Because we're sort of down to bare bones in every department that we have. We have to pay our fire contract. And so there really isn't scope for us to make additional choices than those we've already made, unless we're willing to start eating into our reserves. And that reserve policy has been there for a really, really long time, specifically to keep this city going in the event of some kind of catastrophic loss. So I think for this year, and the Finance Committee obviously reviewed this budget closely, it's difficult to see how we can find extra room for that extra police officer. The good news potentially going forward into the following year is that if our user fees generate the revenues that we're hoping, and if we manage to find a better solution to our fire contract, that we might be in a slightly different fiscal position. But for the time being, at least from my perspective, it to hire extra police officers means making cuts somewhere else. And so that would be the discussion that we'd have to have about where we would do that.
Anyone else? No?
I want to thank Helga for taking the time today to help me with the budget, because she answered all my questions, so I didn't have to ask them here. And they were mainly just understanding certain things. I thank everyone who worked on it. I know it's a lot of work. I know the Finance Committee puts a lot of time and energy into it, and understanding the revenue and the expenditures. As far as the police department, I think with this budget that I don't see the revenue there right now. I think that the city council is looking at some alternatives for nighttime coverage. But I agree with everyone who made comment. But the comment that struck me the most from the public and the community was from Jack Putney, when he says it's almost a moral issue when you're causing police officers to perform under stress and strain. And so I think that we are going to have to seriously, within this next period or sooner, to think about bringing on another police officer when things get a little more clear with what some of our alternatives might be. And so I think that we should have a continuing conversation with the community, and I would encourage people to reach out to any council member or send in a comment to the city on how you feel about the police officers. But I think we're coming to a position where we're going to have to make some kind of move, even if it's an alternative move temporarily, or if at some point we are going to have to hire another police officer. But I think in this budget, I agree with Vice Mayor Wilkinson that there would have to be a lot of adjustments to have that handled right now. But I think it should come on the forefront of the city council in the city to work on if an alternative is viable, and at what point could we consider bringing on another police officer. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
When is that coming back? You're leading a small group that's working on looking into other options and alternatives.
Yeah, we're trying to look at it and understand absolutely the recognition, Chief Wu and his department, as far as the diminishment of service associated with the hours worked and the lack of training, lack of vacation and personal time and so forth. So addressing that as much as we possibly can. But I wanted to highlight something, Kevin, you brought up in the budget discussion earlier, that the fastest growing portion of our budget is the staff-related costs. And it's the workers' comp, the insurance, and the benefits associated with that. So like the fire tax, like our fire services costs, I should say, that's something that's going to increase greater than every other aspect of our business. So it's responsible, or our approach to this has been to take a look first at ways we can try to skin this cat in other ways, as far as is it by increasing the staff? Absolutely. Or maybe reducing the hours that they in fact have to work to cover those same shifts. And it may exactly be like you suggest, that the solution is to hire the other officer to fill out that department. We're hoping, Robert, if you can correct me if I'm not wrong, but to within, I guess, 4 to 6 weeks, come back with a proposal to council, working with the Belvedere Police Department to have some options.
I think it would also be helpful to understand, and maybe we need to look at this again, because we did just do it at the retreat, but I was really struck by the comment from the resident who was talking about the feedback they were getting from the police department is that they couldn't investigate a burglary because they didn't have the resources to do so. Which I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's I'd like to understand that further. Are we that stripped down on resources that we can't respond to crime? That's very concerning.
Jason, could you comment on that?
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. The issue is not necessarily about the lack of ability, but the reduced ability to do so, because the officers, the investigating officer would literally have to be taken offline to do an investigation, to go and talk to people off in course of their investigation. Sometimes they would have to dedicate themselves, and therefore with only one person on patrol, they can't obviously do two things at once. And oftentimes, even trying to write a police report, they're getting calls for services, so they are unable to complete their report in a timely fashion. So I think it's more about that than not having the outright ability to do so. just, we don't have the resource to fully dedicate because one person can only be at one place at one time.
Just to follow up on that, so then is this particular crime remaining unsolved or unattended to because we don't have resources to do so?
It is not unattended to. It's just right now we're with some investigation, some leads just comes to a dead end, and this is more of that. However, in the course of investigating, there were instances in which the officer did not have the ability to take time off to further investigate. They would have to be farmed out to the following shift, but that also then passing the buck to the other person. They can't really do that when they also have to cover the streets.
And this was communicated to the homeowner?
I believe there have been communication between the investigating officer and the homeowner, but that particular issue was never brought up to my attention.
So again, I think it's, we should agendaize this as a topic very soon. I mean, there's clearly some, yeah, we need to understand it better or know what we're trying to solve for and or what are some creative ways to solve it within a budget that, you know, as everyone has just saw, we're operating in a $2.8 million deficit next year. And so, you know, to fund anything incremental means we have to cut something to do that. But I'm open to having that conversation for sure. But I need to know what we're solving for, and it's not completely clear to me just yet what that is. But I mean, maybe I'll summarize going back to just the budget overall. Again, thank you so much for all of the hard work, Helga, and the finance committee and staff. Again, it was a very impressive financial overview, and I know that you worked very hard to budget in a very conservative way to keep the city in good financial standing, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I think the budget definitely reflects priorities of the city, and we did hear from many residents tonight whose priority is looking into our level of policing and making sure that our police officers have what they need to do their job, which would probably also include the offices, which are in pretty bad shape downstairs. So I think it would be important to agendize the issue, which I think we will do as soon as our city manager is able to bring us some more ideas that we can talk about and work through. I think I'm not sure about doing a survey. It's certainly something we can put into the Belvedere Breeze. In the past, doing surveys, we don't get a huge amount of feedback from people. So we can try, we can talk about that. And I don't think any of us have ever thought about making cuts in order to do something else. So I don't think we've had that conversation at this level, but that I'm aware of. So, but I think it's pretty obvious there's not a lot of wiggle room in our budget. So it would be difficult to go line by line and try to do this. There certainly, I don't recall whether the survey or the questionnaire that we sent out for the fire a year or so ago included police or not. That I don't remember. But certainly maybe things have changed, that a year and a half ago people weren't thinking about it as much, but it definitely has become an important topic, not just for the people that came tonight. I've had other feedback from people as well, in addition to the ones that spoke tonight. So it's definitely a serious conversation. I want to make sure that everyone knows that we are working on solving these safety issues, that we plan to give updates about progress working with the Tiburon Fire District as we find out more information there with what our options are. And we happen to be trapped in one of these times where we're working on fire and we're working on contracts with a couple of other agencies, and we're also trying to figure out the police. So, but I want the community to know that we all definitely value all of those people that protect us and that they're important to all of us. So this will not be the last time, as Councilmember Burke said, and we'll try to plan to have an agendized item as soon as we have more information to share.
Can I ask, Helga, when does our pension debt, how many more payments do we have on our pension debt? Because that's 200,000 a year, correct?
It's about 240 a year, 240,000.
And how
a
many more
year.
years have we got left?
I think it goes through 2031, September 2031.
Okay, all right, thank you. We can make it, let's see, that's a revenue, that's a debt, that's an expenditure which is going to expire, and then there will be freedom within the budget, but it's too many years out right now.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, not the lease back. Yeah.
Okay, is that all you needed from us? Did you need a vote on anything?
No, we were just asking for your input tonight.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
No, not a motion.
Okay. Okay, then in that case, we will move to a discussion and possible action to approve a revocable license for private improvements in the public right-of-way for property at 7 Bellevue Avenue.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Cooper and council members, for your consideration tonight. This is a revocable license application for a new retaining wall, landscaping, and driveway within the city's right-of-way for the property at 7 Bellevue Avenue. On September 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission granted an extension of design review approval for exterior siding and window modifications, including driveway widening. The project requires a new 4-foot tall retaining wall to be constructed on the left side of the widened driveway. The commission required that a revocable license be obtained prior to the issuance of the building permit, as portions of the driveway and retaining wall are proposed in the Bellevue Avenue right-of-way. Additional improvements with the city's right-of-way include expanding the driveway towards that retaining wall and landscaping. The blue arrow points to the existing driveway, and the orange arrow points to the new retaining wall and the driveway expansion. Additionally, 2 new 24-inch box oak trees are proposed in the right-of-way. 1 scrub oak will be removed to accommodate that new retaining wall. Here's kind of a front view of it. You can see the retaining wall to the left of the driveway with the house and the new garage. And tonight, we're recommending that the findings for the revocable license can be made as the proposed driveway and retaining wall will permit the creation of off-street parking, thereby relieving traffic on Bellevue Avenue. And the project also proposes a net gain of 1 new live oak tree, which is an aesthetic improvement on the streetscape. And I'm available for questions should you have any.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions about this revocable license? No? Oh, sorry.
Just one quick question. I was wondering if there was any neighbors that were concerned or
Nope.
any community feedback. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'll open this up for public comment. Does anyone here have a question or comment on this item? Anyone on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay, can I have a motion to approve a revocable license at 7 Bellevue Ave for improvements in the public right-of-way? Anyone want to make a
Sure,
motion?
I can make the motion to approve the right-of-way improvements at 7 Bellevue Avenue.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, on to item 11C, which is the authorization of a letter to Caltrans regarding the State Route 131, better known as Tiburon Boulevard, Capital Preventive Maintenance Project.
Would you like a staff report?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Cooper. For the last year, the city's been aware, I'm sure you are as well, of a significant maintenance and safety project on State Route 131, which is also known as Tiburon Boulevard. This roughly 4.5-mile project will include pavement repairs, drainage upgrades, improved accessibility, and new bike lanes. The project is being led by Caltrans and is currently in the final design stages at 95%, with construction scheduled to begin in winter of 2026. Caltrans estimates the work will take approximately 12 months from start to finish. Given that State Route 131 is the sole access route in and out of Belvedere, the project could have substantial impacts on our community. While Caltrans did complete its environmental review earlier this year, the outreach to local residents and stakeholders has been limited. We've begun hearing growing concerns that important local issues still haven't been fully addressed, particularly when it comes to accommodating bus stops and providing safe routes for bicyclists along sections of Tiburon Boulevard, significantly ones with moving traffic. There's a long list of feedback on this project, which some of that has been attached for your reference. Each agency cites its own unique issues. But I think a common theme among many of the stakeholder agencies is that Tiburon Boulevard is a request that the Tiburon Boulevard project be paused in its design work to give more thought into how the improvements, namely the bike lanes, the bus ridership, safety and congestion, will be impacted as it's currently designed. The attached letter formalizes Belvedere's key issues. It's addressed to the district head Caltrans and also CCs our representatives, Damon Connolly and Mike McGuire. Our goal in bringing this to council this evening is to obviously get your authorization to send a letter, but it's also to make the community aware that the outlined concerns need further study. So that concludes the report. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, were you able to connect with anybody from Caltrans?
Send a request to them. We've also, following a meeting that we have with Caltrans and other stakeholders on the 21st, requested that they come and provide information meetings to all the agencies impacted. We've not had that offer yet.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just setting that up because we may have, our questions may not be able to answer without having an authority from Caltrans here, but please go ahead.
Robert, I'll start. So from the staff level meetings that have happened so far, my understanding is that every agency has concerns. There's nobody that supports the project as designed, and even the bike lobby doesn't support the project as designed. And so it's really to understand whether the concerns, whether there's sort of consensus about the concerns or whether they're different according to the different agencies, and whether you're able to just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're accurate. You're right that each agency, either geographically or for some other reason, has their unique concerns with the project. I've not seen where somebody has full support of that project as it's currently proposed. Most of the feedback that the agencies are providing is it's constructive. They have recommendations on improvements that they'd like to see, which from their perspective and our perspective seem reasonable. I think one challenge with this project is the schedule that Caltrans has proposed, which is very aggressive, getting to the 95% design that we're at now, going out to bid and ultimately starting construction. The feedback I get is that they do appreciate the concerns that we have, the feedback that they're hearing, but either the project, the specific impacts were not studied, given that this is primarily a maintenance project and not a new capital improvement project. They're unwilling at this time to study those in more depth. I will say that Tiburon has engaged David Parisi with Parametrics. They're doing a traffic study, which we're hoping can help inform Caltrans. Caltrans has committed to reviewing that study that is being worked on by Tiburon, provided that it is timely. Again, we're not seeing much motivation from them to want to delay the project. So again, getting back to the letter, I think that one of the primary goals we're trying to accomplish in this is to not stop the project, but put a pause on it so that we can be thoughtful, mindful of these concerns and study them if needed.
I just have a follow-up question. So I was interested in the pack here that you had. I hadn't been aware until I read the pack that the bike lobby had submitted another letter following the letters from the school district and from the Yellow Bus Committee expressing those agencies' concerns about safety for children riding to school and the inability of 40-foot yellow buses to stop in bike lanes, which would be insane. And so I wanted to make sure that my understanding of what the bike lobby seems to be saying in this letter is correct, because I was sort of surprised, taken a little bit aback by it. But I'm sure you've read through this. And so what I think it's saying is that they want protected bike lanes, which I assume means that the buses cannot stop at all, or that the roads have to be widened massively in order to be able to put the bike lanes behind the bus stops. But in either of those circumstances, they appear to be saying that their suggestion is that the width of the roads be narrowed and that the speed limit on Tiburon Boulevard be reduced to 35 miles per hour from 45 miles per hour. And that's the recommendation of the bike lobby. Have I summed that up correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. They're proposing lower speed limits, narrower vehicle travel lanes to accommodate the additional right-of-way needed. They're also proposing for wider class 4 bike lanes. So increase from currently they're at 5 feet, they're wanting to increase those to 7 feet.
And more of that longer length.
Correct. Yes.
So I'd always had the impression that when bike lanes are added, they're meant to be additive and they're not meant to harm. Whereas it seems right now that the way this project is being proposed, and certainly the direction that the bike lobby seems to be going, is that we should make room for cyclists, even though that will harm kids riding our yellow bus program that won't be able to stop necessarily. Our transit provider will be constrained, and that will make it difficult for workers and for kids going out to the high schools to necessarily get on those buses as well. And every resident of Tiburon and Belvedere trying to get out on those lanes, it'll take them more time, and there'll be more climate impacts because there'll be more idling of traffic. So I guess what I'm struggling with all of this, and I'd love it if you have some way to explain is I don't understand why, when you've got a perfectly good road on Greenwood Cove Road, which is a 25 mile per hour road, that you would advocate to put bike lanes on a major highway with speeds at 45 to 50 miles an hour for these cars, which are putting people in danger. So what do I not understand within, I don't know whether you've had this conversation within the staff level meetings, why are these recommendations even being brought? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think, like I had mentioned, each agency, we all support multimodal improvements, other bike lanes, more, safer routes for schools and other things like that. But I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head in that, there are, in some areas of where they're proposing these improvements, already established bike lanes and routes that are safe and that the community is aware of and likes to use. The addition of these other routes, I can't speak to the motivation of why certain segments are being added in. My understanding is perhaps they're from Caltrans perspective, and those that want to promote these types of bike routes, they like to see a complete picture. There's a connection point at Blackie's Pasture, for example, that connects them out to Paradise Drive, the highway. So bicyclists could come into town and make their way towards Highway 101 without having to cross over Blackie's Pasture again, at the traffic signal light, again, that's, we don't have any data from Caltrans because they haven't studied that in detail about the traffic volumes and the amount of calls that we would have seen reduced by having that impact built out. But it is a concern of ours, and it's something that both Mill Valley, Tiburon, and the city of Belvedere have advocated for, is just slowing down the project, studying possible alternatives, and making sure that whatever is being proposed is not going to further complicate traffic and make the situation worse. I think everyone can agree that we won't see higher numbers of vehicles because of these improvements, but the congestion component is what everyone believes that is going to be a problem in the aftermath of this.
And the safety component, if the idea is sustained that Caltrans has right now, that we are going to have unprotected bike lanes and buses stopping in bike lanes. And I think one of the things that's been communicated to us by our bus provider, because I sit on that agency, is that these buses are 40 feet long, and it's already really hard for those buses to pull over into bus stops on that part of Tiburon Boulevard, because when traffic's going at 45 miles an hour, to pull in and then pull out is already challenging for a yellow bus. To ask them to do that and navigate past cyclists and park in bike lanes, it seems something that's shockingly unsafe. And I'm just not sure why we're even at this place where that seems to be what's being recommended right now. It's quite shocking. But the piece that was surprising to me in this WTB TAM letter was their suggestion that, quoting them, that many cyclists will ride with car traffic on Greenwood Beach Road, which the neighbors on Greenwood Beach Road do not like. And that seems to be the explanation for why we need to move these bicyclists off Greenwood Beach Road onto a major highway, because the neighbors there don't like it. And that just seems perplexing to me. It's perplexing.
Agreed.
It really is a frustrating and confusing project to anybody that thinks about it for 5 seconds. And did anyone else have something they wanted to add?
Yeah,
before?
just briefly, I'm fine with the letter. I think it's the right approach, although given our history, I don't know it's going to result in too much with Caltrans. But I presume the point of it is to further get on the record with these other agencies, but also to heighten it in a public meeting like this to the community that this is a concern, and if anyone shares in these concerns, to read up about it and to send their own letter, hopefully, about this, because as Sally's pointing out, I think it is a less safe option for many of our bus riders. Transit will have, Marin Transit in particular, has already been on the record for noting how it will alter their schedules potentially and their ability to service the stops. And so I do encourage people to look at it and follow up with further notes to the officials making these decisions whenever you can.
I did notice one error in the letter. The buses are 40 feet long and not 80 feet long. That would be a really long bus.
Thank you.
Robert, do you know if Caltrans did any study about how many bikes actually use the ferry to commute from Tiburon, if they're thinking that people going to work would be using these new lanes? Have they ever done a study of the number of bikes that are going and actually using the ferry?
I'd say specific for this project, the answer would be no. There may be some broader studies that were done, probably older studies that maybe estimated those traffic volumes, perhaps with TAM, but I'm not aware of one.
I mean, it appears that the goal of all this is more for weekend riders who are doing this for exercise and getting out. And people aren't thinking about the day-to-day safety issues of the residents that live there. And knowing several people on Greenwood Beach, I'd be surprised if they realize the endangerment that they're proposing for children who, I don't think they get that many bikes during the week. But certainly weekend, we all have the weekend bikers everywhere, including Belvedere and all over Marin. So I think it's beyond unfortunate. I'm also concerned that if those bike lanes are there, people will start walking in them as a walking multi-use path. I don't know if there's any way to stop that, but that would be a catastrophe. And I think it was interesting that we got an email from Caltrans Bay Area about the bike plan update for District 4. I just received it on May 8th. And they talk all about updating the bike plan, and it talks only about convenience to bikes, prioritizing bikes. There's not a mention of residents, of children. With the discussion we just had about e-bikes, I can't even imagine the horrible options of mixing regular bikes, e-bikes, and cars all right next to each other. But the one sentence that stood out to me is they said the bike plan will be developed in cooperation with local and regional partners to ensure the improvements on the highway system complement proposals for local networks. So they're not even following their own PR campaign that they're putting out there, which is really disturbing. Nothing about personal safety, very one-sided to infrastructure for bikes. That's the entire issue. So I was really disappointed to read that. I think I lived in this area longer than all of you. And I do have to share a tragedy that happened 40 years ago when an 8-year-old boy was with another dad and another child, and they were crossing from Blackie's across Tiburon Boulevard. And as we all know, people come who are traveling west on the 2-lane road, the minute they pass that curve or as they're getting into the curve around Blackie's, and it opens up to the 2 lanes, so 4 lanes, people tend to scoot right around the car in front of them that might be going too slow. Or they're taking a wide turn around that curve there at Blackie's where it comes into Trestle Glen. And the child was killed because the car came around behind, didn't see the child ahead and mowed right over it. And that has stuck with all of us who were here. This child would be the same age as my older daughter. And I know the mother well. I spoke with her and she said she wanted to have her story told because if this is a nuisance that would attract more children into a dangerous situation. She and her husband, who have both suffered for 40 years, really believe strongly that this story needs to be told. I asked her ahead of time if she wanted me to, and she said, yes, sorry for my emotions. Anyway, so it's a tough one to picture more children being put in that situation. Okay, any other comments?
Can I make one additional comment? Because I don't want to give the impression that that we don't support bike plans and multi-use paths and all these things where appropriate. And so when this project was first being presented and didn't include any of the bike lanes and so forth, the first push was to add in a multi-use path between Greenwood Cove Road and East Strawberry Drive. And that is a genuine gap in the transportation network. And we mentioned that in this letter. And I think that's super important because that, if it can be done, is absolutely additive. And so I would hope that we can, support and work towards achieving that goal. I know there are costs of that as well, but they're not as costly as the rest of this project with all of the dangers that it brings. So I hope that, I think the goal is to just have, as you say, have Caltrans just pause and pull back and then reassess what's viable and what's not viable. I hate to give the impression that we just want to say no to everything, because we want this to be a constructive conversation. And the other point I wanted to make is that I'm pretty sure that the county and state representatives who initially supported this project didn't know the real world consequences of what this is. And I'm confident once they learn what all of these impacts are, that they will probably think differently about how this project should look.
Two things. One, I just want to thank Jane and the parents for allowing that story to be told, for sharing so powerfully what the true consequences of these terrible decisions can be. And I hope they're listening. And I wish that we could communicate that in the letter, because I think that's really what we're talking about, is keeping people safe, especially our most vulnerable. I also wanted to understand, what are our other elected officials doing? Do we know what our supervisor is doing, or the assembly person? I mean, there are other people who are in positions of influence. And do we understand what role they're taking in terms of trying to shape this into a much better place and protecting our citizens?
Yeah, I can't speak for all of our representatives, but I know that Stephanie Moulton Peters, I believe also Damon Conley, like was mentioned, initially supported this project. I believe Stephanie's been spearheading some of it with Caltrans leading up till now. And she has been part of the meetings as well. We've, like I mentioned, that meeting on the 21st with TAM, where TAM was a facilitator between all the agencies, trying to find the middle ground. That was an outcome based on her recommendation. So I know she has an interest. She's aware of some of the impacts that are surrounding this. And again, I think the balancing point here is trying to find what are the impacts to the project and to the funding. If we put a pause on it, are we going to lose out on that? Those may be considerations that Caltrans and of course Stephanie are thinking about in the larger picture. But again, ultimately, we're the ones, the residents, that have to live with this. So we want to make sure we get it right, which is the intent of the letter.
So is it possible to send a copy of the letter to Stephanie Moulton Peters so that she?
Yeah, it's going.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah. And I've contacted her also myself personally to share my thoughts about it. So I think she's getting more impact from people, and I'm hoping that, I don't know if it's even possible for her to get any more involved in this. At this point, it may be moved beyond her, but I think you're right that we need to make sure the higher up electeds are involved in all this, so.
And I wonder, is it something that we should invite our communities, I mean, Tiburon as well, to initiate a letter writing campaign, or somehow communicating with people who are in a position to make a more immediate impact on this decision? I mean, we certainly can publicize that, to our residents and see if they want to help us apply more pressure.
Am I mistaken, or did Sausalito actually decide to stop going forward with this, even though they would be giving up the grant money? They made the decision that it was too dangerous for Bridgeway.
I think that's true.
And
but
I think that's
I'm not sure.
correct. And so I get that sometimes you want to keep the train going because the money is there, but there are people who are standing up and saying, stop, because this isn't working for our community.
Novato just did the same thing as well. They declined.
Who did?
Novato.
Oh, they
They
did?
did last week as well.
Oh, interesting.
But
So
isn't this a highway that is not controlled by the cities?
Yeah, so
I mean,
that's the difference.
That's the
That's the
difference.
difference,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. You're right.
But I agree that the most likely way to get this project altered is for residents to start to make their voices heard.
Where would we where would people write letters?
We'd have to figure that. I do
figure that out, yeah.
believe that there might be a letter campaign being organized, but I'm
Okay.
not sure of the details.
Okay, great. Okay, then can I have a motion to authorize the letter to Caltrans regarding State Route 131 Capital Preventive Maintenance Project?
Excuse me, sorry, Peter. We don't have the governor's name on here. Why don't we have the governor's name? I mean, why don't we send it to the governor's office? I mean, this is a big thing. I mean, we should be sending it to everybody in Sacramento saying, no, stop and look at this. This is a safety issue. I mean, his kids are in Kentfield, Ross, whatever, and, you know, they're going through the same issues on the roads there. I mean, he's got to be concerned about children. So why don't we add Governor Newsom to this and also our Lieutenant Governor?
Eleni?
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time that we've sent to the whole Marin Board of Supervisors rather than just Stephanie, because they're all
I think that's
they're all
important
making
too.
these decisions, and
Yeah.
so I think they should be aware of the concerns being raised.
I agree.
So did we need a vote on this?
I think we do need public comment still,
Yeah.
but
Oh, sorry.
I would also like a motion if you could.
Okay, so are there anyone in the public interested in talking on this item? Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, we have Sandy Donnell.
Okay.
I just want to say I support that you all are still there, having been on the council, and really appreciate your work. And I thank you for really taking this issue seriously. I think it's something that really needs having been on the TAM board for a bit, TAM and Caltrans are pretty closely aligned. So I think, you know, talking to TAM and Caltrans is a wonderful way to go. So thank you very, very much for looking at this in a serious fashion.
Thank you. Thanks for calling. Okay, then can I have a motion to authorize the letter?
Sure. A motion to authorize a letter to Caltrans regarding State Route 131.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a tough one to go through. Okay, another easy discussion. Our next item is discussion and possible action to appoint members to the Planning Commission and to the Ranch Board of Directors. Is there a staff report on this, or essentially we're just discussing what, right?
Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions about process or anything?
How are we going to do it? We have, for Planning Commission, we have 3 candidates, and we have the Planning Commission appointment and then potential for the alternate 2. So do we rank them or do we, what do we do?
You get alignment on the planning commissioner first, and then, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have anything they want to, any person or reason why they?
I mean, I'll jump in. And I'm not going to pronounce her, Hazela?
Azalea?
Azalea. I think, well, first of all, I mean, for both categories, the candidate qualifications are just extraordinary. I mean, it's really, we're so lucky to have 5 people who are so qualified. I mean, just, I've come to enough of these meetings to know that it's unusual to have such a wealth of talent to pick from. And so thanks again to all 5 who raised their hands. And you know, it's hard, but for me, I think she stands out, you know, for a number of reasons. I think her architectural degree, her architectural practice, I think, you know, her sensibilities. I liked her answers in terms of how she was thinking of things. I feel like she would bring an objective voice that's also grounded in real lived experiences as it relates to design and planning and review, understanding of code and so forth. It's not to say that the other 2 didn't have really compelling qualifications. I just feel like she has a greater depth of experience that would really serve the Planning Commission very well, especially at this point in time.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would just say I concur with that entirely. I liked her responses, which fit very much with, I think, what we sometimes might feel has been lacking on the Planning Commission. And so I was very impressed with her, as well as the other two. Absolutely. I agree with Kevin that we are in a ridiculously difficult position because they're also incredibly qualified.
Well, and I think, we're a little fortunate with our new design because we did designate alternate one as a person who recently served on the Planning Commission, but we do have the alternate two position available. And all three candidates said that they would serve on either one happily, which again was a really nice offer from all of them, that they seem genuinely want to do what's best for the community where they can help the most. So I thought that that we're actually opening up more opportunities for ourselves to bring in some of these great candidates. So did anyone else have any thoughts on?
Well, I agree with Kevin and Sally. I think Azalea kind of rose a little bit to the top. But it's, it's unfortunate that we have three great candidates and only one position available. We do have the opportunity for the alternate two, I think, which, if we use that as I think we're going to use it, I think it's going to make for a nice choice, an easier choice for moving people up to the Planning Commission if they work out as the alternate.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was impressed by the other two. I mean, it's a tough choice.
Yeah, I think they all three bring quite a bit, as we talked about, to future commission, slightly different strengths, and I can see a world where I think Isolde would be a strength in the context of our commission, differently than Azalea would. But I would still probably concur that Azalea, I think, is the best mix right now for the number one, for the appointment to replace Ashley on the commission itself, on the Planning Commission itself. And I would broadly recommend we try to keep them all in the loop as far as future positions, because things shake out differently over time, and it is a quality pool that I think we're fortunate to have.
I think they all brought up really interesting thoughts and ways that they would look at the Planning Commission, how they saw themselves on the Planning Commission. And I agree that Azalea has the architecture piece of it, and that Isolde seems to understand a lot of what the planning commissioners and the planning department, obviously, since that's her background, have to deal with, which could be helpful. And that Eugenia brings, again, another vision where you're working together and collaborating often, and with her interior design eye, sort of. So did you want to add something?
No, just the interesting part that I think Isolde brought it up, the special meeting last month.
Mm-hmm.
There were enough parameters or enough irregularities merging a true discretionary design review with some of the more objective-based ministerial reviews that she understands thoroughly, where I think a lot of our commission are leaning on Rebecca quite a bit. And that's why I said that they bring different things, and that would be helpful going forward when I think more of those will come into play as it relates to, by right aspects of planning, which are becoming more and more prevalent.
I also thought that Isolde would be incredibly valuable to us with our general plan update because she
did
brings
too.
so much, a wealth of experience with that. And that will, I'm sure the committee will be set up differently, but I mean, my sense would be that if she's willing to do it, that she would be the ideal candidate for the alternate.
Yeah.
And if we happen to lose any other planning commissioners, we will roll her in as soon as humanly possible, again, because she brings so many skills that will be useful to Belvedere over time.
I'd also hope, Rebecca, that you and the next chair, as you go forward, use the alternates liberally when you can. I mean, not just when you have a quorum, but I think 4 commissioners in a body of 5 is better than 3. It's certainly 4. 4 is also better than 7, but just if you have 3, I would bring in that 4th one. If it's an experienced one, as soon as we appoint that person, or even if we get the alternates up to speed quickly, I would try to utilize them, because I think 5 is better than 4 and 4 is better than 3 whenever you have the opportunity.
Well, I think that's also something that Rebecca's going to work on is exactly what is the role of the alternate too.
Mhm.
And, what they're going to be doing. So I think that will evolve as we go forward, what that alternate does.
And we do, we set up the whole alternate idea so that we could have the experienced person in alternate 1. And Rebecca did receive an email from Marsha Lasky about serving in that position. And so because we said we were automatically putting someone in, there's no need to interview or have a formal anything with Marsha. So I think I would also propose that going forward tonight, we put Marsha in that position, so we have her available
I'm not
right
sure.
away.
I'm quite confident we have to either advertise it or do some sort of formal agenda with.
We don't.
No, we don't.
No?
No. I don't think so.
I just reading the agenda, I didn't see an appointment of 2 alternates,
Okay. Oh, for the
nor
agenda, right.
mention of
Right.
Marcia specifically, although she would obviously be a wonderful alternate for the planning
Right, right.
commission.
Can I just ask those if, so we had Marsha and we have Isolde as the alternates. If we were down to 4 planning commissioners, does that mean that Marsha would immediately be the 5th? Or
Not
would that be up to
immediately.
would that be up to,
That's what
meaning who
Peter
would
was
step
just
in?
saying, that, yes, 5 is better than 4.
Yeah, but would you always go for Marsha first because she's the experienced one? And so
That's the idea,
so then it's only if you're down to 3 that you would bring in the second alternate.
Not necessarily.
I don't,
it's
I think the
flexible.
idea was this alternate 2 was going to sort of be a trainee, right? And so they would just be guided by alternate 1, but in this
But how do they train if they never attend a planning commission meeting?
Well, I think they would come to the planning commission meeting. I'm not sure they would be up at the dais, right? The alternate 2. But in this situation, Isolde is very experienced.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
don't think it
It's a
was sort of what
different-
we were thinking when we set up that policy.
Right.
I also think you have I think from a conception can't speak tonight, I'm sorry.
Perception.
From a, as it was defined or as it was thought about, the more experienced planning commissioner would be someone who could pick up without much preparation or without much learning curve, a complex project. And certainly if you had a 322, Centerville Avenue or 104 Golden Gate, you would call Marsha in that circumstance. If it was not something as complex, I think Isolde in the case would be perfectly fine, because frankly, what's the difference between, no disrespect whatsoever, between Azalea and Isolde coming in on their first few meetings in the same way, as long as they have the same preparation and the same commitment to it. And that's what you want. You want to get as many up to speed as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I would rotate. I mean, I think you would use your discretion, but I think rotating them in is a much better, especially if you have 2 that are already qualified, but even if you had somebody who was still developing, I still think it would give them good experience. And you still have 4 other commissioners who have that experience. And so, yeah, it'll strengthen the bench if you keep them both active, and it'll also keep them more engaged, I think, too.
So I have a,
I think the alternate program just needs to get evaluated and thought through as we get it on its
Yeah.
feet. And it's going to evolve and morph into different things, but I do think that some attention to how this is all going to work needs to be sort of thought out so that everybody knows what their expectations are.
Agree.
so Andrew, just to clarify, the agenda says interviews of the following applicants for appointments to the following commission and board of directors. Nothing mentions alternates at all there. So are we precluded from putting one of them in as an alternate?
Yeah, so that,
Is that what you were saying?
yeah, so the staff report, looking at that
Oh,
portion
okay.
in terms of the recommended motion and item description, refers to making appointment to fill 1 unexpected vacancy on the planning commission and 1 unexpected vacancy on the ranch board of directors.
Right.
Which was,
It doesn't say anything about
but that was
alternate.
subsequently, Beth altered that and published it.
The motion wasn't changed. We still have the
Oh, the
same
motion,
motion
the
from
motion.
before.
Mhm.
Bring
To do
them
the
back
interview.
on consent next month, the alternates,
So,
right? And
but we can't appoint 1 alternate tonight?
Not on the agenda.
Not, that's what he was saying.
Should be on consent.
That's.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
it's just the one.
It's
Yeah,
just
but
the
yeah,
one
just to be,
position.
yeah,
And-
but just to be clear, I think we could do it as a consent item at the next meeting.
And I
That,
think.
that would be okay.
For
And
both.
could that include Marshall Lasky
Yes.
as well?
Yes, I think we
please.
could do both alternates at the same time
Okay,
Okay,
as a consent item, because I think
Okay.
that's certainly the direction of the council tonight.
okay,
perfect.
great.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question? though?
Sure.
Do we advertise that we wanted applicants for the alternate? So did we give the community enough notice to raise their hand? What if there are other experienced commissioners who want to be involved?
What, are you talking about alternate 1?
Yeah. I mean, so we are,
I mean,
I mean,
it
so
was
somebody could come-
advertised alternate and it didn't say alternate 1 and alternate 2.
so
It
we
just
did
said
say
to be
alternate.
alternates. And I mean,
It did
that,
say that.
it did say, yeah, it didn't say alternate 1
Just
or
an
alternate 2. We're looking
No,
for, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, I think if we're,
We don't have any.
the
Yeah, so
idea
just
was,
just to be clear, so after conferring with our clerk, so the advertisement did not specifically mention the alternate positions, but also to be just looking at the policy itself, it doesn't require us to
Yeah.
advertise for those alternate positions either. But certainly that's within the discretion of council and your decision to make about what process needs to be conducted before we appoint the alternates. So we could tee it up as a consent item for the next meeting, but if you wish to go through a longer process, obviously we can also implement that as well.
We have 3 good candidates and I think that,
and we already know we have an experienced person who has stepped forward.
Yeah, I just want to be fair to the community. I mean, if there are other people who said, well, I didn't know, I mean, but it's fine. I mean, you could always put it in the breeze on Friday and say, if we're looking for alternates, if you want to apply by.
Well, then we have to do this whole process over again. And I think
I
I think we have a good group and I
Alright,
think we
that's fine.
know where we're going with it. And I don't see
Yeah,
the
it's just,
point
it's
of
an equitable issue.
reopening it
It's
up
just an
again.
equitable issue,
Yeah.
but if you're fine being inequitable, that's fine.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
That we appoint Azalea to the vacancy on the planning commission and that we appoint by consent next month, potentially, Isolde as the first alternate and Marcia as the second alternate.
no, it's the other way around.
Well,
Marcia first.
other way
Yeah,
around.
we're not, yeah, we can leave the alternates unaddressed
Okay,
for now.
fine.
We will bring as a consent
Nice
item.
try there.
Okay. All right.
Second.
All in
Wait.
favor?
Aye.
Public-
public
Actually, if you don't
comment.
mind, just maybe making it easier, we could just move on to the ranch appointment.
And then do. public
Yeah, we'll
comment.
do one motion, appoint both positions and speak.
And public comment all at once?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's just do that. Thank you.
Okay. another difficult choice because we had two more fabulous candidates for the ranch position. Both obviously would be great in joining that board of directors. I don't have a lot of experience with the ranch, and
Can I
we have
ask Sa-
someone here that does.
Can I ask Sally, you're almost, your same three questions back to your
Yeah,
your three
right.
buckets. I mean, where is there a need on the board as you see it?
Well, so what was actually really interesting was Maddie's comment, which I hadn't even thought about, but it is a gap in the ranches programming is the booking system.
Yeah.
And we keep looking at it and we don't really go anywhere with it. And so the fact that she's shown interest in that and has apparently some experience in that area would actually be very valuable. So it wasn't an area that I was thinking about, but comparing the two, I mean, they're both great candidates. There's no question. She would, to me, be able to jump in more readily and create some value there. But again, I think that Brian's obviously very qualified on the financial side. We only have, there's three of us serve on the finance committee. I think I'm the only one that technically comes from a financial background. And he would be a strong addition for that. So again, they're both strong candidates, and I would, of the two, probably lean towards Maddie, but would definitely encourage Brian to apply when those seats come up in, how long will those seats be till they come up? In 2026, would it be? When do we next rotate the seats on the 26? Because there's four people serving from Belvedere, a council member then and three others, and so
Yeah.
he would be a very strong candidate, and he obviously has a lot of enthusiasm and seems to know quite a lot about the organization already.
Yeah.
But again, I would have a slight preference for Maddie, but if others feel differently, they're both great candidates.
No, I felt similarly that I had a slight preference for Maddie, and I thought she would bring an enthusiasm and a good mix.
And one area they do struggle is on getting board members to volunteer at some of their major events. And I think she'd be enthusiastic to do that. So I think that would be helpful too.
I thought they were both very strong. And, when Maddie was up, I was like, she was checking all of the boxes for me. But I think Brian for me is just, his energy was just, I think, a little bit infectious. And I think his transferable experience that he outlined for us, just in terms of all of the different volunteer work, I mean, he seems to be maybe a bit more proven. I like that he would bring the financial sensibility to the group, although it sounds like that's not necessarily something you did, but he was certainly enthusiastic about every other element as well. So I'm leaning more towards him, although I would be really happy to see Maddie in the role too. I think they're both really great candidates.
I kind of agree with that.
So I agree with what Kevin just said, that I think, I know Brian, he moved here a couple of years ago, and he has jumped in and volunteered for a lot. And he's very responsible. He's very enthusiastic. And he really wants to give back to the community. I mean, he really strives for that. And I think that he could fit into the ranch either in the finance side or on the volunteer side if they don't have people who want to volunteer. Every time I ask him to do something, he does it. He shows up and he's there and he does it. He's a worker. So I would be totally fine with Maddie if that's the direction the majority goes. But in my book, I'm just like Kevin, I feel that he has some energy and expertise that would be beneficial to a lot of committees. I mean, if he doesn't make it tonight, we got to find a position for him, because I think he'd be great.
What have you worked on? The foundation?
The Yes, the foundation and also the Belvedere Sailing Society.
I guess if you're talking about gender equity, it's 3 women right now filling the 4 seats. So, and sometimes it's good to have more male voices on those boards. So again, I don't have a religion over this at all. I see strengths in both of them.
I mean, the problem is that you get 2 good candidates, you want 2 positions.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have 2 positions and we don't get those choices.
Right. So, well, I think I'm going to throw my vote in with the Brian camp for all the reasons listed. But again, we're just too lucky. We have overflowing with great people. So it's a real toss up. And is that okay then?
Yeah.
Okay, then can I have a motion to appoint?
Public comment.
Oh, yeah, public comment time. Anybody want to comment? The candidates or appointments? No?
There are
Okay.
no hands raised.
Okay, great. Then can I have a motion to appoint Brian Chase to,
Aren't we doing a motion for
Director.
both?
And the planning commission as well.
oh, and the planning. I thought we already did that one.
So I make a motion to appoint Azalea,
Azalea.
I'll get it yet. Azalea as to replace Ashley Johnson on the Planning Commission. And I make a nomination or motion to appoint, Brian Chase to the ranch.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I did want to make just a really quick statement that we've also been very grateful to Ashley Johnson for her leadership and years that she spent on the Planning Commission. I think she was on it for 4 years and then took over as chair, following a very strong person with great leadership skills. So that was a challenge and she stood up to it. So we'll miss her with moving off to the East Coast, but I'm sure she'll have a great, wonderful life there. So
We still got public comment. haven't we?
she'll be pleased that we have such great people coming in behind her. Okay, on to open forum. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to briefly address the city council on any matter that does not appear on this agenda, but is within the city council's subject matter jurisdiction. Upon being recognized by the mayor, please limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Under the Brown Act, council members may not deliberate or take action on items not on tonight's agenda. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or council consideration may be placed on the agenda for further discussion at a later meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to make a public comment? Anyone on Zoom?
Mayor Cooper, there are no hands raised.
Okay, then in that case, I will close the open forum and adjourn the May 12th meeting. Good night, everyone.